Hello and welcome to And That's Why We Drink, a podcast with Em and Christine.
Oh, that was fun.
I'm trying to make it more professional.
You waited a little too long, I think. I tried to
It's
do
never
that.
too late to be who you want to be. F. Scott Fitzgerald.
Oh, wow. You
My
really
stepmother
are.
has that embroidered on a pillow, so I memorized it, okay?
What do I have on any? I don't think I have anything fun on pillows.
You have a picture of Gio on a pillow, so I think that counts.
Okay, that's fair. I actually
That's
have.
inspiring.
I have a lot of things with your dog's face on it, who doesn't even live on this side of the country anymore, by the way.
Yeah, the embarrassing part is I buy them and then like make you put them in your home. So it's quite embarrassing, but you know.
And I graciously accept with open arms. So thank you. Anyway, how is Gio? No, I'm sure a lot of people would like an update on him.
Oh my goodness. He's well, oh my God, I haven't even told you this. We literally hired a dog trainer here in
Wow, you really are becoming a totally different person.
It's hardcore because I'm desperate because I mean he's here right now because we're recording too late in the day to put him in daycare.
Okay.
So anytime anyone comes over, we have to put him in daycare. Even if it's like my dad, like he's just so bad with people.
What does he do?
He just like barks and gets territorial and like tries to get them out the door and like loses his
Really?
mind. Yeah, it's only people he like really knows he's fine with, but I think after moving to a new house he's gotten like more sensitive. I don't know. I don't know, but it's just like driving me crazy. If anytime the mail comes, as you know, it's like
mail was always a big moment for the whole house.
Yeah, and like now that we're getting packages for, instead of like Instacart or whatever I'm doing, like things are coming to the front door and like I'm like after Corona, how am I supposed to have like anybody over ever, like how am I supposed to, it's just a nightmare. So we hired a dog trainer who came 2 days ago and today is the first day of like training and I'm already so bad at it because he's not allowed to be on furniture for like 2 months to kind of like establish they're like, he's the alpha in this house, and you need to like reestablish.
That's for damn sure.
I was like, he is, and Blaze was like, Christine.
Well, he's a Scorpio, so let's start there.
I was like, he's the alpha in the world, so
universe,
it's not like just me. But yeah, so we're doing all this training. I have like a 3-page notebook or 3-page list of every day we're supposed to do training, doorbell training, knocking training. Like, I mean, it is a whole like stranger training where I'm supposed to have my dad come over and like give him treats. I mean, it's just a lot. So anyway, he's fine, but like if he barks during this, please know that I'm trying my best to get rid of it.
It's like having a toddler. I get it. It's okay.
People don't like when I say that because like I'm sure having a toddler is a whole different I know having a toddler is a whole different volume.
Volume, they're the same to me.
It's a lot. Okay, in terms of interruptions of like recording a podcast, they're very probably similar. So
I gotta tell you, it's probably my fault. I probably should chip in with your trainer. I think I started the curve with that popcorn.
Oh yeah, I sent you a bill.
A bill?
Already.
Great. Okay.
It's in a Geo envelope with his face on it.
I gave it to Eva and said, get rid of this. That's probably what happened. How are you doing? Are you doing well?
Oh, I'm fine, Em. Thank you for asking. I am finishing up all your Christmas gifts and wrapping them, and they're right behind the computer, so I can't show you, but I'm very excited.
I'm so close to seeing them.
Ooh, oh, by the way, everybody, this comes out December, the
20th.
week of Christmas. Yeah. So we decided we needed some extra prep time. So we're doing like our quote unquote real holiday special next week, if you can even call it that. So I have something planned for that, or like a fun story, but just in case anyone's wondering.
Cool, man.
How are you? I miss you.
I miss you. I wanted to tell you, if you'll indulge me.
Please, always.
So this, and we don't need to make this weird. We're allowed to just have a casual, normal conversation.
Okay, I'm going to take my antidepressants while you tell the story, just in case the camera comes back to me. That's what's happening. I just want to warn, if people are like, why is Christine popping pills? It's normal.
Damn, Christine, what I'm about to say is not that bad.
I need to like bolster myself for your story.
Well, I appreciate that. So for those of you who know, by the time, so this comes out on the 20th, and as we're saying this, it already happened a few weeks ago, so probably like a month ago. You probably saw on my Instagram that I lost my Gammy. And so today and yesterday, because it got split up, yesterday was the memorial service, and then this morning at 6 a.m. here, thanks, Gammy. It was
Keeping you on your toes.
It was the wake, or no, yesterday was this was my first funeral. I don't know what's going on. But today was the burial.
Oh, I see. I think I don't know. Forget it.
Yesterday was like the open casket experience. Yesterday.
Experience. Trademark.
It was an experience. And
you need to buy a special priority ticket.
And then today was like the mass and the burial. So 3 days ago, by the time you're listening to this, 3 days ago, December 17th, would have been her 80th birthday.
Oh,
and
happy birthday.
For those of you, I appreciate everyone saying very wonderful, kind things to me when I first lost her. She was the best woman in the entire world. She was the best grandma. If you're thinking in your head, okay, well, you haven't met my grandma, you're still wrong. My grandma, this was the coolest Gammy in the whole world.
I'm conceding this from day 0. I'm conceding this to you.
Well,
I know it.
She was just it was the thing that was the weirdest because it was, hang on a second. Let me just get through this whole story.
I like how Em starts yelling at everybody and it's like, you have the stage and the microphone.
I'm literally like, everyone calm the fuck down.
Give me a minute. Jeez.
Well, so she, just so everyone knows, because I don't know if anyone is asking this to themselves, but so she ends up passing from COVID. She was the one that I've discussed before who had pretty gnarly Alzheimer's. Right. And I'm really lucky that when we were in New York last year, I got to see her, or maybe it was 2 years ago now. I got to spend one last real day with her, and that was very delightful. And so she was already, I think, on her way out. She had not been doing great, and then she got COVID, and the nurses called us and said, she's not going to make it through the weekend, so this is the time for everyone to call her through a speakerphone and say your goodbyes. And a lot of my family is still in New York, where my Gammy was, and me and some of my cousins are in North Carolina. So for those, because of COVID, we couldn't go to the funeral. I think they had like a limit to who could go. So we ended up doing everything through Zoom, which, by the way, being a part of that through Zoom was wildly awkward.
Yeah, I bet. It's such a weird new experience.
It was, I kept trying to, make people feel better. I was
emote or something.
I was trying to keep energy high, because everyone was obviously very somber. I'm one of the very lucky people when it came to my relationship with my Gammy, where the grieving was very easy for me because I got closure a long time ago with that relationship, and we both knew that we were each other's homies. I have nothing I never got to say to her. So
right.
I was trying to be in what would be good spirits during during all of this on Zoom. I really fucked up earlier today too. During the
what?
During
what
the
did you do? Oh no!
I wasn't gonna say this part, but I told Eva, and then
what?
I was just okay. So
tell me.
Everybody
else plug your ears.
I'm so
and by plug your ears, I guess you already have headphones in, so you're just gonna hear it louder.
Gammy, I'm so sorry if you can hear me right now.
What happened?
I was trying to not necessarily keep things light and that I wasn't taking this seriously. I was just trying to be more jovial. One of the things that everyone knew about my Gammy is that she was just such she walked in the room and she was always the smiliest, happiest.
Yeah.
Her laugh, the one thing I'm going to miss the most about her was her laugh, because it was just you'll never hear anything like it again. And the thing that was so weird for me during this wake was that she wasn't smiling. She didn't look like herself, not because she was dead, but because she wasn't smiling. And so I was trying to kind of keep spirits high, because I know that's what she would have wanted. And if it were a wake for someone else, she would have, or a mass or funeral, she would have done the same thing. So I was like, okay, for Gammy, I'm going to try to be the more uppity person. Other people are grieving more than I am. So I'm going to be that energy. And my cousin came up to me on Zoom.
Uh-oh.
I was on Zoom, and then my cousins from North Carolina were also on Zoom. And my uncles were doing a great job of kind of leaving the laptop on a pew in the church, and then leaning it against something else during the memorial service. And so they left it running, so we were just kind of almost sitting with the audience, yikes, our family. And
oh my God, I didn't even realize. I was like, what about it? Oh God, we're the worst.
Technically, I was an audience member.
Yeah. Yikes.
But so one of my cousins came up who like isn't handling it very well. Aww. And he was like, hey, how are you doing? And I was in my room at 6 a.m. and I was like, well, if you told me a year ago that I wouldn't wear pants to my grandma's funeral, I would have thought you were crazy. And then I thought he would laugh. And like my aunt was also, I thought she would laugh, and no one laughed. And my other cousin who was on Zoom with us, I saw her go, like cover her mouth like, I can't believe you said that.
This is a Gemini's worst nightmare. Like literally being like that guy at a funeral. Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
I wasn't trying to like come up.
No,
like
I know of that for a fact. So I'm just saying
like this happened to be a funeral where pants were optional, whether or not it was addressed openly. And so
I feel like I would have laughed in the church, and then everyone would have been like, I would have been the asshole. So, I mean, maybe they were like, well, maybe we're not supposed to laugh at M's hilarious joke. I don't know.
You know what? I think my Gammy would have laughed.
I was going to say, she probably laughed.
She was just such a happy, she loved like little pranks and being jokey and stuff like that. So I think she would have been very happy that someone said something like that. But anyway, I really went off on a tangent. Sorry. I was not going to address that I said that.
That you didn't wear pants to your grandma's funeral.
No, ma'am.
This is a weird fucking year, folks. I don't know how. That's like such a topper. Happy Christmas, I guess.
There it is. But so the thing that I wanted to say, but I felt like I needed to, zhuzh this up so it had some context. I wanted to officially tell everyone a very personal quote ghost story. What? You already know this one, but it's one of my gammies, and so
is it the one?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God, I was gonna say, but then I was like, I don't know if like that's a thing Em wants to talk about. So yay.
my gammy, I will say, She was always really, really embarrassed about it because she didn't think people would believe her. So she didn't talk about it a lot. But I think this is the exact platform she wished she had.
Yeah.
And I'm absolutely
We have no shame, Gammy. We will.
This is a safe space. This is a safe space. And so she. One of the things that she always had with her growing up, every time I was at her house, I would look at her, I would be in her bedroom and I would see on her nightstand on like, you know how night tables have like that bottom shelf for you to like put something? There was always this shoe, like a white shoe. And I was like, what is the story to this?
Totally.
And my whole family knows the story. I'm very lucky that I inherited the shoe. I'm very happy about that. And my Gammy had this story. I hope I'm not butchering it, but the gist is that she got it back in like the 80s when her and my grandpa were getting divorced, and they were gardening shoes. My Gammy liked to garden a lot. So she put the shoes on. Oh, there's Gio.
Sorry, I tried to warn you, folks.
That's okay.
And even Gammy can't stop Gio's nonsense. I'm so sorry.
Not even for a second, that one.
God, I would also be so disrespectful at a funeral with this one. I mean, you and I would be just like a nightmare duo to have at a funeral.
Like you forgot to mute, and then like your dog.
Exactly. And I would be screaming at my dog, like, shut up.
Well, so I will say one of my favorite fun facts about my Gammy, since we're killing time waiting for him to stop barking, my Gammy was in a barbershop quartet called the Afternoon Delights.
I mean, come on.
She was the best.
You can't beat that. You can't.
So she was gardening, and she had just had this, like, I'm assuming a really nasty split. I know that her ex wasn't tops.
Well, and I think it was so much harder back then to go through a divorce, even for our parents' generation.
And they got married real young. I think like when she was like 18 or something.
Oh,
so
wow.
She, even if it was like not the greatest relationship, it was all she knew. So I think she was really scared. And she had just gotten these like brand new gardening shoes to like make herself feel good. And while she was gardening, she was, my Gammy was more or less religious and, would talk to her parents who had already passed on. Kind of praying, but kind of just chatting with them. And
was she Christian?
She was Catholic, yeah.
Catholic, yeah.
So while she was gardening, she was talking to her mom, who she was really close with. And she was like, Mom, I'm just really scared. I just want this to, work. And, I want to know that I'm going to be okay and that you're looking out for me. And, I just need a sign that you're here with me and I'm not alone. And as she was doing that, when she was gardening, her shoes got all muddy because she had been using the hose. Yeah. And so her shoes got all muddy. So she left them out. She rinsed them off with the hose and then she left them on the her front porch to dry out in the sun. Mm-hmm. And she went to bed. The next day she went to go get her shoes. And in one of the shoes there, in the dried mud that was left, it embedded itself into her shoe. The mud embedded in it, but in a perfect picture, a perfect image of a woman that we think could be her mom, or it's just like a guardian angel something like that. Mm-hmm. But when I tell you, it's not like a potato chip and you think you see Jesus in the potato chip. So I brought the shoe.
You did? Okay.
I did. So
I've seen it in photos.
This is the shoe.
I'm seeing it in photos again because I'm not there, but
So my only issue is I don't know how what the camera sees, so I'm just going to post a picture so you guys can see what it looks like on the inside. But I know you, Christine, can see in there.
I have really bad quality video on you right now for some reason.
Okay, so but trust and believe. I've shown it to you before, haven't I?
Yes, I've seen it. Yeah.
I mean, it's it's no joke. It's like
no.
It's like a little portrait in there, and it's all ripped up in here. The sole is ripped up because my Gammy was so freaked out about it. She took it to a bunch of churches and priests were
really?
Priests. So all in here, you can't really see, but the little padding, it's glued down for the most part where it originally was. But this whole part up in the shoe is ripped out and barely hanging on because so many priests didn't believe her. They were ripping it out to try to see what was behind it. So it's all messed up and no one can explain it. But ever since that day, this face has been here. And so my Gammy always kept it by her nightstand and would talk to it whenever she was sad. And then when her Alzheimer's got really bad and my aunt was moving her into a home, she had to kind of pick and choose what went with my Gammy and what would start kind of getting handed out to family members. And my aunt, I had been begging for this one for a long time. So I got the shoe and now I keep it on my nightstand. And when I want to talk to Gammy, I've got someone to look at.
And great Gammy.
So anyway,
that's a great story.
During when Gammy passed a couple weeks ago, I kept saying what the coolest part is, Gammy? Now you know who this person is. You got to meet that person recently.
Yes.
And you were probably you're the girl from the shoe.
Ooh, I just got goose cam.
So I hope that they're singing in a barbershop quartet somewhere together.
Oh, I'm sure they are.
I thought today was an appropriate day, and 3 days ago would have been her birthday. So,
happy I love birthday, you, Gammy. I'm sure she's just living it up.
Oh, she's having a blast. She was such a social butterfly. She probably hasn't even caught up with everyone yet. So,
yeah, anyway. And was she didn't visit me. And I was like, she probably has a lot of people to talk to.
She's busy as hell.
She might come back later.
She'll pencil me in 30 years.
Especially since you've had closure. She's probably there's plenty of people who didn't get closure with me. I'll see them real quick.
Also, so by the time she was born, her parents had 3 other babies and they all died before she was born.
Oh no.
So she's got 3 whole brothers to catch up with. So
oh my god.
She's got a whole slew of people that's on a to-do list right now. So I'm okay with not getting a sign from her yet, but at some point I'm going to get impatient, Gammy. So wherever you are, hurry up.
Oh. Okay, Em, I got an email yesterday saying that Gio has a new relative.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I'm building out his family tree.
I wish.
It's so dorky, but I love it.
Okay, that is I want to know everything. Do you get to learn more about this?
Yes, and so you see how they're related, the breed match. You see how distantly they're related. You get to see photos and you could contact them. This is through Embark, everybody. So it's the breed and health kit. This is one of the coolest things I've ever gotten to do for Gio.
Truly,
I love it so much. And I'm finding his family members, building out his family tree. I was able to see if he had any health conditions that go along with his breeds, and we found out he's part dachshund, which is something we never knew. So that's a fun fact.
I feel we always knew it a little, but now we know.
Yeah.
I mean, also, we know I love a good family tree. I've talked about doing my own family trees, but now you can do them for the cutest member of your family. Wait a minute. Hey, got a second. And also with Embark, from breed traits to genetic risk factors for health conditions, Embark provides the resources to help you and your vet best tailor care for your dog's specific needs. So like you said, you now know more about Gio's potential health conditions or anything that could arise in the future. So it's like also a safety net. It's very wonderful.
It's very helpful, and you can even learn your dog's ancestry back to their great-grandparents. As I said, you can match with their relatives, which is what I'm aggressively doing. And then every dog that gets tested also contributes to their research into discovering and treating new genetic diseases in dogs to help extend the lives of dogs. So all around, just good stuff.
Let's just put it this way. If you want there to be a more realistic chance that you have a dog family reunion, Embark is the one for you.
Right now, Embark has an offer on their breed and health kit for our listeners this holiday season. Go to embarkvet.com now to get free shipping and save $50 off your Embark breed and health kit with promo code DRINK.
Visit embarkvet.com and use promo code DRINK to save $50 today. There are a lot of blue light glasses on the market, and to lump all blue light glasses together is like lumping Honda Civics and Corvettes together, maybe mixing potatoes and tomatoes, mixing them together.
Potatoes and tomatoes. One is sincerely much better than the other. Exactly. And so what you have to understand here, folks, is that most clear blue light lenses filter only 2 to 3% of blue light from screens, and Felix Gray filters 15 times more than that. So it is like, I guess, the Corvette of blue light glasses is maybe something.
The potato to your potato, if you will.
The potato to your potato. And it's true. Like I had blue light glasses before and I was like, oh, I don't know if these are working. And then once I got my Felix Grays, I swear to God, I wear them every night. And I really do feel like my headaches have gone. I can fall asleep so much faster than I used to. It's just primo stuff.
Primo. The strain is no longer a thing for me, especially when it comes to migraines in the middle of the night, because I love my screens being really bright when I'm in pitch black. And then I'm like, why do my eyes hurt? So the more advanced sleep glasses relieve serious daily eye strain and are especially designed for late night screen time to improve sleep. So I can promise you that if they're working for me, they'll work for you.
Our eyes weren't meant to look at screens all day. It messes with our internal balance, which affects our sleep, causes stress, headaches, blurry vision, and eye fatigue, which I can guarantee Em and I have experienced all of the above. And that's where Felix Gray comes in. Finally, a pair of glasses designed for the 21st century. Go to felixgrayglasses.com/drink to shop glasses that work as hard as you do.
That's FELIXGRAY glasses.com/drink. Free shipping, free exchanges, 30-day money back guarantee.
felixgrayglasses.com/drink.
Anyway, that's my thing. I'm sorry that went longer than I wanted.
No, it's a beautiful story, and I'm very sorry again for your loss. I know that you're doing fine, but
I'm doing fine. She's doing fine, and
I love you, and I love your Gammy by extension, even though I never got to meet her.
She would have loved you. She would have gotten. She would have gotten such a kick out of you. She would have been like, this one's a dynamo.
What's wrong with this one? She probably would have said. My Catholic grandma also said that a lot, so it's fine. I'm used to it.
I think she would have liked you a lot. So anyway, that was just a little shout out to her. So my story this week, I want to get through it because I know you said that yours is long. So I want to make sure that I give you ample time.
Aww.
So mine is kind of a connecting story to last week, the Fox sisters that I covered.
Got it.
So this happened within 6 years of the Fox sisters story. And this is the story of the Davenport Brothers.
Oh, gosh. I didn't know those people existed.
They sure did. So they were more siblings that were instrumental in spiritualism. Not as accidentally, but I think it blew out of proportion for them as well. I think they didn't mean for it to get as wild as it did. So the Davenport brothers, there were two of them. One's name was Ira. Is that the name? Mm-hmm. IRA? Okay. Ira Davenport.
Like Ira Glass.
Okay. Ira.
You're like,
Ira. Ira Glass.
Yeah.
Why don't I know what that is?
Oh, he's sorry, I couldn't tell by your face. He's the host of This American Life, who works for NPR.
Well, I said because I know that name, but then I was like, why can't I put a face to it?
Yeah, it's such like a feel like anyway, he was like an OG podcaster basically, and he works for NPR and does This American Life, and he's a very recognizable voice, I guess.
It's really telling that I don't listen to those shows apparently. Okay. So
well, he's the only Ira I can think of, so.
Ira and William. I know a lot of Williams. Okay. So Ira and William Davenport. And so their family, this is also weird, they were not too far away from Hydesville, New York, where the Fox sisters were.
Oh.
So a lot of people think that there's no way they didn't hear about the Fox sisters, and maybe the Fox sisters inspired what happened with them.
Sure.
So their dad was in the police force. He was a detective, and he taught his kids, I don't know why his dad had this interest, but he taught them all about like kind of little illusions, like specifically rope magic tricks.
Oh, that's fun.
I think
That's a very dad thing, I feel like.
Yeah, or maybe it started with like, here's how to tie a knot, and then it just became
Or
like
the thing
cool.
where you do like a quarter, like little sleight of hand stuff.
Yeah, so he apparently was really into that stuff and taught his kids. And so the kids would try these tricks at home, and apparently it's kind of muddled, but the kids ended up getting so good at these magic tricks that their parents believed there was no way they could have not been doing it without being powerful.
Oh, they got bigger than dad.
They got bigger than dad to a wild point.
Okay.
So Houdini himself referred to their mother. Okay, fucked up Houdini called their mom a simple woman, easily misled.
Okay.
Then again, kinda, because she straight up just believed her children had magic powers. So
I mean, you and I are going to believe our children have you and
okay,
like
you're
think
right,
about
you're
this.
right.
You've literally said the second your future child says like, "Oh, there's a person or an imaginary friend," you're going to think it's like a full demonic force.
But you want to know why? Because I'm a simple woman who is easily misled. So you can back off.
Houdini, you asshole.
So what I think the way that the story started was they were doing these illusions, they were getting better at them, and then I think they probably heard about the Fox sisters. There's also a different storyline that says that the father was kind of getting into like spiritualism because of the Fox sisters himself. Anyway, it influenced their house in some way where the kids were like, oh, we should try table rapping and table knocking and see what happens. So they started doing these table sessions and trying to do their own seances. And like as preteens, like just little kids. Apparently they were accidentally really good at it.
That's like us in podcasting. We're like, what? People listen to us?
Look, that's also me with escape rooms. Apparently I'm like, what?
It is. It's definitely you with
happening?
escape rooms. Podcasting's the only one I've found so far that I've like accidentally been good at.
You
I'll
say
take
that.
it.
You just haven't tried to make an escape room. I think you would be sinister if you decide to make one.
I think I would go in my own really bad path and nobody would ever follow me.
Your
So,
spectacular mind, they would study it one day.
spectacular mind. Okay.
So apparently they were really good at this. There's like table turning, rapping sessions, and on their first try with a seance, their little sister levitated.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so now you're like, what is real and what is not? So also the table started, after that happened, they were like, wow, we're pretty good. We should keep doing this. So they started doing these seances pretty often, and soon tables were moving. They were hearing raps, just like knocking on with the Fox sisters. Ira started to be able to automatically write. And at one point, all three of the children levitated at once, and I think were thrown across the room by accident.
Oh, by accident.
Or very much on purpose.
Accident. Yeah,
I want to think the ghost was like kind of nice. So another time, I don't really understand why he did this, but Ira, you know how kids were in the 1840s, pulled out his gun. And he shot at like a random corner. Apparently there was like a legitimate...
Inside?
Yeah. Look.
He
was like 12. I don't know.
Oh, the child. Sorry. I thought that was the dad. I was like, this is all getting...
the child's gun. This is how we know this is American
the child
spiritualism.
pulled his own gun. I understand. Okay,
yep.
wow. Now it makes a whole lot more sense.
USA. So
Yikes.
whipped out his gun, and he, I don't know why, shot at the corner of the room, an empty corner of the room. Apparently there was a reason to that. The reason is beyond me.
The reason is he was 12 years old.
Okay, that might be it too.
Period. End of story.
And as he fired the pistol, the second that he fired and there was like kind of a flash from the explosion, all of a sudden the gun in that, like, not even a split second, like split second, all of a sudden the gun was taken out of his hands, almost like in slow motion. The gun was taken out of his hand, and he saw a human figure in the corner holding his gun and smiling at him. And then when the flash left, all of a sudden that figure was gone and the gun dropped to the floor.
Oh, okay. That's weird. I don't even know what to make of that.
I don't either. It was like an apparition that was like millisecond away from like keeping you from firing a gun, I guess.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but it didn't work. Or
and also, why was he smiling? And why was he standing where the bullet was gonna go? Like, come on now.
Yeah, I feel like that would be an excuse. Like, oh no, I didn't shoot the gun. My imaginary friend did. But like, he didn't even use that as an excuse. He's like, no, I shot the gun.
It's like, I shot it. My imaginary friend pulled it away from me because he's a square.
What a rude. Yeah, exactly.
So apparently, in that moment, they also had this realizing, this knowledge, some sort of epiphany that the figure that they had seen was John King, who was their self-appointed control. So when we've talked about seances before, a control is almost like a spirit who comes down and is like there to be the translator for all the other spirits.
Oh, right. Okay.
Christine.
Yes.
So currently my freezer and my fridge are packed like a cartoon character. I was trying to lean into the door to slam my fridge shut because it is filled with Daily Harvest right now.
Yes, same thing. I have them lined up in their very beautiful packaging. So they're all lined up like in a nice little, my freezer's one of those pull drawers. And so I know we've discussed this before, but so we have a separation in our freezer. So now Blazes go on the left and I go on the right. So we don't have to worry about sharpieing them anymore. It's actually very handy. Daily Harvest delivers delicious food built on organic fruits and vegetables right to your door. It takes just a few minutes to prepare. I never have to question if the food is good for me. I mean, Blaze has taken to, drinking one of the smoothies every day before work now. Good. So clearly it energizes him enough for the day. And yeah, we're big fans.
Yeah, Daily Harvest has an option for any time of day. So we've got the Blaze smoothie, as I like to call them. They also have the flatbreads that I can't stop eating.
Oh, so good.
For lunch or dinner. And there's comfort food when the weather starts to cool down. So right now it is a brisk 58 degrees here today, which means I'm going to whip out one of their harvest bowls, and I'm very excited about it.
Ooh, yummy. Daily Harvest is also committed to minimizing their environmental impact, and they're in the process of transitioning to 100% recyclable, plant-based, and renewable fiber packaging. So even though it's shipping to you, you don't have to feel bad about getting shipments in the mail.
Bingo. Daily Harvest makes it easy to eat clean, undeniably delicious food, no matter what your day brings. Keep it simple with Daily Harvest.
Go to dailyharvest.com and enter promo code DRINK to get $25 off your first box.
That's promo code DRINK for $25 off your first box at dailyharvest.com.
Dailyharvest.com.
Christine, I beat you to it. I have a hunch I know what you were going to say. Do you want me to tell you?
Yes, tell me.
My name's Christine. I'm fab. I'm fit. I'm fun. But what I was going to say is, dang, Christine, you look fab and fit and fun. What is going on?
I totally got called out in my recent Instagram post about my Christmas tree because not only was I wearing a FabFitFun headband that I recently received, I was also wearing the mucklucks. And so everyone was like, Christine, like you're literally wearing like every accessory, and I'm currently wearing a necklace I got in a pass box. Like it's actually becoming almost a like laughable joke. But so a lot of people were saying like, where are those mucklucks from? And I was like, check out FabFitFun because everything they send me, I end up just using in my day-to-day life. It's amazing.
You know who also uses FabFitFun? Xenon. Her UFO is made of FabFitFun, actually. So FabFitFun is passionate about showcasing amazing women. There are 16 female-founded brands that are in the winter box this season, and you can choose from a wide variety of products when you order. Christine just listed a couple already that you could probably choose from if you'd like to match with her and her tree. And
I highly recommend it.
And yeah, it's just, and you look divine, by the way, doing it.
Oh, thank you. I got the triple F going for me. So, folks, order your winter box today. Sign up now so you can snag amazing products like the muglux, the headband. There are countless products. I'm not going to list them all, but you are going to love them. Use coupon code DRINK for $10 off your first box at fabfitfun.com.
That's coupon code DRINK for $10 off your first box at fabfitfun.com. So apparently, I didn't know this. I must just be like not hip with it when it comes to spiritualism. But apparently John King, like across the nation became everyone's control.
Oh my gosh.
Like this guy went to every single person that ever did a seance and was like, I'm your control. I'm the captain.
Oh, wow.
So,
bossy. Okay.
yeah. So I think he's just like the only control or something.
Is this like anyone famous, or is this just like some random dude from the
If
other
it's someone
side?
famous, I don't know him.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Because I'm like, we had talked about Ben Franklin. Why couldn't he be the control? Like,
Right.
that's
Like
fun.
why couldn't like someone you
No
want
offense,
to run
John.
into, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, so they had this knowing that it was John King and he was their control. So they started trying to speak to John King pretty frequently. No guns needed, but they were like, now that we have this spirit control and this guide with us, then we can, see what they want to say. And John King, who I guess he was sitting at the table with them one night and was like, damn, you're pretty good at this. You should perform in public.
Oh, God. Okay.
And so they decided, because the ghosts told them, or John King told them, that they should now go and do public seances for people. And much like Leah Fox becoming her sister's, quote, momager, sisager, their dad retired from the force and became their dadager.
I see.
A lot of similarities so far. He was probably just taken,
sure.
he was like, I'm going to follow what that Leah Fox did. She really brought them something. Really brought
They're
them
making
somewhere.
some buku bucks over there.
He was like, I'm going to follow that hot trail. So they've been inspired to start working publicly and doing their stuff. So in 1854, which was only 6 years after the Fox sisters, the Davenport brothers, who were 16 and 14 at this point, they began performing their illusions while also doing seances. And so it was kind of a combination of like magic and ghosts, which like is very sassy.
Yeah. Love it.
And so mainly they were known for their seances, and they were doing them locally at this point. So early shows, they started just like the Fox sisters. Most of it was just wrappings on a table. It very quickly escalated, which I'm going to get to in a second. But one of my favorite fun facts of this is one of their biggest fans was P.T. Barnum again, who loved the Fox sisters.
Okay, this guy is just like over the place.
He's trying to recruit them, I think. So after performing and working in some local seance circles, the Davenports are like, okay, we're becoming big fish in this little pond. So we're going to go to New York City. And they start doing this thing called dark seances, which is not as scary as it seems. It literally means that they're doing seances in the dark.
Sounds pretty scary to me.
Ooh.
Oh, wait, so I'm sorry to be this dumb, but like, so are normal seances in the light?
I always thought so, but I guess they just like, now they're official. They're like, this
I
one's
always
in the
thought
dark.
they were in the dark because like,
I don't know what the reasoning was, but I just always assumed you wanted to do it when it was darker, right?
well, I always assumed because it was usually fake, and so they were like, here, not always, but when they were doing these like tricks, they always turn the lights off.
I always thought maybe because at that point, if they were fake,
it seemed like it was more fake. I don't know.
if they were fake, it's so far, at least according to their father, who like was willing to quit his like steady paying job, that he had seen all three of his children literally fly across the room.
Okay.
So like, I think he was like, this is pretty legitimate. So
I feel like it's usually by like candlelight makes it spooky, but I don't know. What do I know? Clearly,
not as much as the Davenport brothers, I guess.
apparently not.
Apparently these were dark seances, but maybe what you're looking for is this little piece of information. Okay. So the brothers that specifically for their seances, their quote dark seances, this was the act, I guess, is the event. They would tie themselves to chairs because remember they knew these rope illusions.
Oh yes.
So they were mixing their knowledge of like rope magic tricks into their seance stuff.
Okay.
But so it was almost like it was more of an like they were trying to be a performance act.
Chris Angel, my lover.
Kinda, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely your lover. I remember you telling me you love him. I won't forget it.
It's an oft overlooked facet of my personality.
But also everything else you've ever said, when you say Chris Angel is like my honey, I'm like, well, that checks out. Like just
okay. All right. Maybe it does fit. Maybe it fits.
So now I see DB for Davenport Brothers, and I thought David Blaine.
Oh, well, There's a lot. There's a lot going on here.
So the Davenport brothers, they would tie themselves to chairs, and that's when they would do their seances. So it was almost to prove that they weren't doing anything. They weren't messing with stuff. And they would even have volunteers tie them as tight as possible to these chairs. So that was just kind of their shtick of like, look, we're legitimate. So they would tie themselves, or they would have people tie them to chairs, and then they would summon the spirits. And before the seance started, they would show everyone like, there's nothing going on. Like, you can investigate, you can look around. In the center of the room, we're going to leave a bunch of instruments. And then once we're all tied down, we summon spirits by having them try to like play the instruments.
Oh, I thought you meant like, an EMF detector. You're like, no, it's a tuba. It's a trombone in the middle of the
it's
room.
Literally like musical instruments.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Like
wow.
a little cowbell.
That's fun.
And so that was their way of being able to summon them, was through music.
Okay.
So they would do everything in the dark, and then and they also would turn the lights off. That was kind of the shady part of like, okay, why do the lights have to be off for this? So the lights were off, and by the time the seance started, you could hear like the banjo strumming itself or the guitar playing, and people started feeling themselves kind of getting touched, or something weird would happen. They'd hear voices from other parts of the corners where no one was. And when they would turn the lights back on, they were still in their chairs completely tied down. So that was like what really got them popular. Sure. Sometimes, this was kind of funny too, one of the things that they would do in their quote act is they would when the lights came back on, they would be wearing each other's clothes. Like they would be like, they'd be tied to the chair like they never got up, but now they're in like
fun.
Their pants are down or something funny. So they tried to make it, maybe that's why P.T. Barnum loved them, because they kind of had like a circusy feel to it.
It feels like clowny almost.
Like vaudeville, like a lot of like
showy stuff going on.
So, and to be fair, like I'm saying this to you in kind of like a hindsight way of like what was going on, but like people were freaking the fuck out. Like I want you to like frame this in your head of like, even though I'm giving you the kind of the real parts of it, people saw this and were like, holy shit, like they didn't know it was an illusion act at all.
Yeah, and especially if you're getting like touched or feel things, like that must be terrifying in the dark.
And especially
whether it's a ghost or not.
Especially when the people that are hosting you are strapped down and you know they are because you tied them down. And now all of a sudden, like they're wearing someone else's coat. Like what
the banjo's playing. You're like, oh, where did I end up here?
So one seance report said this, they would have regularly, like the press would come and like make reports about them.
What a fun beat to have. Like you join a newspaper and they're like, you're on the seance beat.
It's like being on like all sorts of magazines or all sorts of paragraphs.
All paragraphs everywhere.
Paragraphs all over my room.
This is full of paragraphs. Good luck. So stupid. We're like, I know we say this a lot, but like we'd be the worst blank, but like I literally studied journalism, but like we would have just been the worst like spiritualism journalists. We would have been like,
absolutely.
Oh, it would have been bad.
If they could have had like this is just a bunch of paragraphs, or whatever that article was. if they had that, but like ghost edition, I'd be like, here we go, buckle up.
Just make Eva write that down the whole time.
It was literally
we don't even have to write it.
It was just Eva's notes. That's what it was.
We just talk, right? Wait, that's what's happening. Okay.
So in the
this is making a lot of sense.
One of the reports said, quote, one Davenport boy was floated in the air above the heads of those in the room at a distance of 9 feet from the floor. Next, a brother and sister were influenced in the same way, and then 3 children floated high up in the room. Hundreds of respectable citizens of Buffalo are reported to have seen these occurrences. So, as you can tell from that quote, they're also not just doing this the sitting in the chair thing. They're also now adding levitation to it. And then eventually they started putting like phosphorus chemicals or something. They started painting items in advance with all this like glow in the dark stuff, basically, so that you would see these items and like the musical instruments like floating on the ceiling and shit. And so
oh my gosh,
it was like almost like, I think this is your answer to the dark seance thing. It was almost like a light show. So because the lights were off, all of a sudden the music is playing, and now all of the musical instruments are glowing and flying around the room, and
This
also
is
like
so wild.
also children are like getting levitated. So
This is like Cirque du Soleil.
it's like Blue Man.
Early
It's Blue
beta
Man Group.
version.
Yeah.
It's a beta Blue Man group.
It's the Beta Blue Man Brothers. Okay. So part of the show beforehand, which like in hindsight, we know that this was an act. I usually don't start with telling you guys the truth, but I just don't know how to frame this story properly without,
Yeah.
I don't know how to give you all the information without just being direct. So I'm sorry. Usually I like to tease you guys, but here we go. So part of the show beforehand was that they had this guy, Reverend J.B. Ferguson, where if you're from the South, he's a very famous person, at least in like, I think Nashville or somewhere in Tennessee.
Oh, I don't know the name.
So he loved them, and he was one of those people who like was a devout believer. Like they were legit. Like the Davenport brothers are not doing anything other than just tying themselves to chairs, and now ghosts are here. So they asked him to be like a part of their show, and he would basically like MC. Like he would never get on the stage or anything, but it was almost like they kind of planted him. It was like they found someone who really believed in them, and so they used it to their advantage. And they would always have him in the audience, and this reverend would just go around and just like be like, guys, they're so real. They're so real. Like you're about to have your mind fucking blown.
That's like when we tell our parents to come to the or when our parents or friends are coming, we're like laugh so hard that like everyone will think we're funny.
We
know?
have actually done that at when we know someone
we do
know.
that often.
When we know someone in the audience, we will tell them in advance, like, please God laugh, so at least we hear one laugh. Like, even if it's not
one
funny.
One person's laughing, yeah, we'll feel better.
You can text me as you're laughing saying, this isn't fucking funny. But, like, I need to hear the laugh.
Just, even if I know that's my stepdad, just go with it, please.
If you're wondering what you should do in our audience, if you're, like, kind of bored and, like, trying to figure out what to do besides watch us, please laugh.
Please fake laugh if you're so bored that you can't laugh for real.
You know what hurts my feelings is like Allison's fake laugh is like so much more believable than her real laugh because there has been a few times where like I tell a joke and then she literally is just deadpan, doesn't care, and then I'll be like, that hurt my feelings. Can you just like fake laugh so I feel good about it? And then her real laugh, I'm like, that felt so hearty and real. So now I'm nervous about when you actually laugh because you just taught me that you know how to fake laugh very well.
I'm not good at fake laughing.
Me either.
I go like ha ha ha.
Allison, that's a scary power that she has because now
it is very powerful.
Now I don't know. Oh well. So so the Davenport brothers, they had the Reverend with them, and he was like hyping everyone up. He was basically like a live audience hype man.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
But he also like they weren't like paying him to trick anyone. He was deadly believed it. And so that was why they I think used him because they were like, we don't even have to lie. Like this guy thinks we're legit.
No.
And so he went on tour with them for a while too. Like they brought him everywhere they could. And so the brothers were actually eventually, right when they were about to get super big, they were caught one day, someone came to one of their seances and snuck in a lantern, and in the middle of the seance turned the light on, and it was found out that the brothers were running around the room with instruments in their hands, and
what a sight to see! Like, because one of their pants is off, and they're just like, "I'm holding a banjo." Like, it must be like the strangest sight.
It feels like watching like Dwight and Mose out in the cornfield or something. Like it's just like weird
how
chaos.
How do you even explain this to your own mind? I don't know. Oh my god!
But so apparently they got caught, like busted. That like, okay, so you're the ones doing this, and then before the lights come on, you like shimmy yourself back into the ropes.
Right. Okay.
So they had been found out, and then their reputation was kind of crushed. So they ended up moving back home to Buffalo.
What do you think the Reverend felt? He must have been like in that moment when he's like, "No, this is crazy," and then they turn on the lights. His heart must have just sank. Like,
well, so I don't know about him. I would guess. The only quotes I found from him, which by the way were a lot, and they were very in depth and very flowery. They were like love letters. He fucking loved them. I don't think I think he was one of those people where like evidence had been thrown into his face, and he was like, "Not true, fake news."
He was gonna find a way, like fake news it. Yeah. Got it.
He was like, they're just jealous. They wish they had powers or something. So
okay.
So they moved back to Buffalo. And they continued to hold circles wherever they could, like given that their reputation wasn't too damaged. And they just kind of hung back for a little bit and regrouped. And that's when they were like, okay, we're going to go back out there. This time we're going to really rock their socks off. And that is when they created the Davenport Spirit Cabinet. So,
Okay.
do you have a laptop near you or your phone?
Yes.
Can you Google it? And because I'm going to
Sure.
try to describe it for you, but I might need backup because
I'm
it's.
picturing a Dybbuk box. Is that not right?
Imagine that, but like for humans to be able to fit in.
What is it called? Sorry, Davenport
A Davenport Spirit Cabinet.
cabinet. Got
It was basically a massive wardrobe that they were able to hollow out for themselves. So I'm going to try to describe it and then just tell me if I kind of nail it.
Let me see. Oh, I see it. Yep.
Okay.
Got a photo.
So it's basically a giant armoire of sorts, or like a cabinet where the door, like fridge-sized cabinet
Like
doors.
a wardrobe.
Yes,
Yeah.
like a wardrobe. And there are 3 doors to it. So there's a left, a middle, and a right. The left and the right sides have benches on them so that from either end of the wardrobe, the brothers can sit down on the benches facing each other. So in the middle section, because there's 3 doors, right? So in the middle section, there's at the very top, there's a little window with a curtain.
Aha. Okay.
So from there, this was the spirit cabinet. So how it would work is volunteers would be called onto the stage from the audience, and they would tie up the Davenport brothers. They were sitting on the benches, and they would be tied up on their wrists and their feet to the benches, and then they would close the doors.
Okay.
And then the volunteers would like go sit back down. So basically, they were only brought up there just to tie them up, close the doors, and then go back to their seats.
Get a little clap. Get a little embarrassed.
A little hee hee, yeah. So
My little moment.
a little clout, a little for the Insta, you know. And so what would happen next was it was a series of the doors would open and now they're untied. The doors would be closed again. They would open and now they're tied up. And then open, close. They're untied, they're tied. They're untied, they're tied. But every time would be like a little more ridiculous. So like it'd be like, oh, now they again like don't have pants on. They really like to close the stuff.
Wow, they like to take the stripping into the whole mix.
Well, the main thing is in the middle portion. It was, I guess the way to describe it is it was almost like they were taking their dark seance act on tour. So they had all the musical instruments in the middle part of the cabinet. So where they were tied down, once they were closed in theory, they shouldn't be able to play the music. But when you were sitting outside, you could hear music like going like crazy. Like you could hear like a million spirits playing a band. And then
there's like 3 sections, right? So like they can't, presumably can't access the middle section even. Okay,
exactly.
Got it.
And so it was like, oh, you can hear all this music, but how? They're tied down. And then you would open the door and see they're still tied. And then later they would all of a sudden be untied, even though how could that be? So it was just kind of a back and forth thing like that. There was also a version where they, for like the second part of their act, they would have a volunteer actually go into the cabinet with them.
Oh.
And be in the middle portion.
Okay.
And then usually it ended up being some sort of vaudeville thing where like their pants were down or they had like a
Can you imagine you're like, oh, I'll get on stage and they're like, hold on, let me unbutton your pants in this dark wardrobe. It's like,
at least I think it's like a ghost or something. But like,
listen, I went up to the Chippendales. Remember, I got called up to Chippendales.
Do I remember, Christine?
That was.
I called a therapist. I remember.
So did my brother.
I watched Christine basically in a porn. It was
it was like next level,
intense.
like the most. I will say
shower one, right? The shower.
Lisa got to do the shower bit. I was in the 50 Shades of Grey sequence, so
right,
there were a lot of devices. Yeah, it was a whole thing, and I want to add because every time I feel like I should say this is that I got up there and they were like, you know, we're never actually going to touch you. First, second, like the moment you feel uncomfortable or you're like, I don't want to do this, literally just say, you know, no or stop or whatever.
They were wildly respectful.
Done. Yeah. And they were like, you know, anytime you feel like I don't want to do this anymore, like just say the word and it's over. They explain like every step of it. And so I was like, they're like, and then we're going to reach through your legs. And I was like, oh God. I was like, okay. And then I'm like, my mom is in the audience.
They said something like, oh, we're gonna blindfold you and like bend you over.
Yeah, they blindfold you, bend you over, reach through your legs. And I was like, my mom, M, brother, Lisa, are in the audience. I just don't even know.
My eyes were on fire. I remember it being like, I was having an out of body experience where I was like, I can feel the trauma. I can
you
feel it
like folding into the folds of your brain, just like
I could feel it going into the folds and then going even deeper where I won't be able to remember it until like 20 years from now in a violent rage. Yeah. Just like repressed out of
wake up in a nightmare. Yeah. Anyway, so that's
Eva was there. Oh, poor Eva
was there. Oh, poor Eva. And we had
just
met her that year, so she was like, okay.
It was October and we hired her April, right?
No, it was July because this was a bachelorette.
Oh my God! So we knew her for 8 weeks.
No, February we hired her, right? Around her birthday, March.
It was April 18th, homie.
Oh, April. Okay. I get all our dates confused. April, May, June, July. Yeah, so like
that was
3
the
months.
Final test of her interview, actually. It was just see if you can tolerate this.
Listen, she passed better than you did, so.
The very first picture I ever took of her on my phone is when we got to go backstage at Chippendales, and she's like holding like a leather crop, and I was like, this is odd. I was like...
Of Eva? Yeah, this is... I just signed a document that says I'm your employer. This is like probably
It was
not.
so... I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Oh, what a good sport.
I have heartburn.
Anyway, when you said that guy was in the wardrobe and they took his pants off, I was like, well, I've been there, so.
Yeah, hopefully they were as kind and respectful.
I doubt it, but maybe.
I'm glad you had a great experience because I had to watch it. So
I had a blast, especially because I was blindfolded. So I was like, I don't know what they're doing. I'm just standing here.
You would have
they tied me up too. This is very
sure
similar to this story. They like literally tied me up with ropes.
Actually, wait a minute. Are they Chippendales?
Are they the original
Wait a minute. They're the original Chippendales.
Oh my God. I thought they were the Blue Man Group, but now sexy?
They're both in Vegas. I think they're actually the same people.
This is horrifying to me. All of it.
I think the Chippendales people just paint themselves blue and then go on stage again.
I would rather never see that happen.
I would rather never see you on stage with the Chippendales, but guess what happened?
Well, too late for that.
Too late. You owe me a lot of money because it's been going straight to BetterHelp and
money. Yeah. Okay. Well, you owe me money for dog therapy or for dog training, so I guess we're even.
Yeah, call it even. Okay. So they would have. I brought up the pants thing again just because I'm still like having my own
it's hilarious
anxiety about the comment at the funeral about pants.
Oh, that's right. Oh my God, this is all very fitting. Wow.
But so they would do a lot of things. Like they would put like a tambourine on your head, or your necktie would be on your leg, or like something kind of goofy. So they'd bring the volunteer in, and then you'd hear a bunch of sounds, and then all of a sudden the volunteer is like looking crazy, but the brothers are all tied up. So how did that happen? So that was the second part of their act with the cabinet. So this is actually a quote from the book called The Spirit World Unmasked. And it says, this was describing like the person who wrote this was actually an audience member who saw this happening. Pandemonium reigned. That's what this podcast should be called.
I love that. Pandemonium.
Bells were rung, horns blown, tambourines thumped, violins played, and guitars vigorously twanged. Heavy rappings also were heard on the ceiling, sides, and floor of the cabinet. And then after a brief but absolute silence, a bare hand and arm, remember there's the window with the curtain.
Oh, yeah.
A bare hand and arm emerged from the window and rung a big dinner bell.
Okay.
But it's also like, okay, so what they're hoping people will think is like, these can't possibly be their hands. It's like a spirit has manifested in there and you're seeing a ghost's hand.
A ghostly hand ringing time for din-din. Yeah.
Time to eat. And then after, and so that was the whole thing. So it'd ring a dinner bell. That's what the window was for. So the bros. Sorry, the bros. I wrote bros to make my notes shorter, so everything says either bros or the DBs.
The DBs.
Here's another quote about when the volunteers would go into the cabinets with them. I have at different times seen at least 300 people enter that cabinet, all of whom certified that there was no movement on the part of the brothers. Because that was supposed to be the other part where you're pulling a volunteer out from nowhere and they can confirm for you later, like, all this wild shit happened to you, but we were tied down and we didn't do this. So then it would almost be a word of mouth marketing where they were like, I was in there and like, I don't know what happened because they were tied down.
Confirm.
I didn't feel them touch me. Nothing happened. I just all of a sudden had this, my pants were down. So, so now what convinced the audience that there wasn't any, I guess, like let's say the the final piece of evidence that they had not been doing anything and they had been tied down this whole time. The real, to me, trick to this was that the Davenport brothers, when they were getting tied down to the chairs originally at the beginning of their act, they would be given a handful each of flour.
Okay.
And then they'd be tied down. And then by the end of all of this, we're like tambourine on the head, necktie on the leg. And by the end of the whole act, they still had flour in their hands. So there's no way they could have touched anything.
Oh, that's funny. What a random thought. I love that.
And what a smart way to like try to prove like my hands are closed. I'm not doing any of this.
That's really clever.
So we'll get back to the flour in a little bit. But I wanted to make sure I said that because I kept thinking like, of course, like for all you know, like these ropes are like little magnets and they're just bracelets, but they look like rope or something. And like,
sure.
But if you have flour, like if you even let go of that, like your clothes are covered in it. So like you would be busted right away.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
So they would then end each show still holding the flour in their hands. So the audience obviously went fucking bananas for this. So the New York Daily Tribune in 1869 reviewed their work and said, this arm and these hands may have belonged to the Davenport brothers, from like the one from the window. Mm-hmm. But if they did, the Davenport brothers are the cleverest jugglers of this age or of any age in which juggling has been known. Like, okay, guy.
Wow. What a statement. It's like us again with the term paper where they're like, it's 5,000 words and you're like, juggling has been known.
I love juggling because juggling is fun and juggling is spelled Juggg.
Yeah. Do you know how to spell it? Do you know how many centuries it's been around? Me neither, but I thought I'd ask. Yeah.
So after the cabinet act, the Davenport brothers would then hold a seance like their old routine where they now were using phosphorescent oils on the instruments. So they were floating around. So you kind of got an act where they were in the cabinet together, then an act where a volunteer joined, and then an act with the music instruments everywhere. Wow. So here's the real question that like if I knew how to have phrased this story differently, we would be having a different conversation. Here's the big question I was going to ask you.
Okay.
Are the Davenport brothers magicians or mediums? What do you think, Christine?
Mediums.
I personally think they might have had a little bit of help with magic.
I think they're kind of like future TLC stars, you know? Or like a
Penn and Teller kind of thing.
Yeah, like some sort of TV show where they really try to trick you that they're, you know, that they're magical, but they're just really good at.
Actually, isn't that a Penn and Teller show?
I think
where it's
the Penn and Teller are very like upfront that they don't believe in anything supernatural or paranormal.
Yes, but I'm like specifically with illusions. I meant not the.
Oh yeah, like illusion wise, yeah, it feels very Penn and Teller.
They have have like they're basically like America's Got Talent, but it's just magic tricks, and then they
right.
It's a great fucking show.
Totally feel like that.
I do know that Penn and Teller are wild skeptics, and that's because I was very lucky that for undergrad, my senior thesis had to be in a class called like Weird Beliefs. It was literally just...
I love that. Lucky.
And it was literally my teacher, who's a massive skeptic, was just ripping apart ghosts the whole fucking time.
What kind of class?
Every chapter was a different like weird phenomena, like near-death experiences or this.
Debunking.
And he just debunked it the whole time. But our entire class, like when we had to watch like educational videos about like we had to watch Penn and Teller.
Oh, because it's so funny because I have a weird connection to them too. Because when so Lisa knows them really well, and so when I was in Vegas on the way, not for Bachelorette, that was a whole another experience with Lisa. But when Blaze and I were driving to LA, we were in Vegas for a night, and Lisa was like, "Here, I'll get you tickets to the Penn and Teller show," and we went. And the whole time I was like. Because he was like, I want to be very clear that like I think people are taking advantage when they're doing like cold readings. Like he was very upfront about being a skeptic, and I was like, oh no, that hurts my feelings. And then afterward, I went up and was like, oh, I'm like, we're Lisa's nephew and wife and stuff, and talked to him for a little bit. But I was like, this was before we had the podcast, so nowadays I think I would have been like, I'm gonna leave that fact out because I feel like he's gonna be like, no thanks, I'm not interested in that, but. Yeah, he was a nice guy, but yeah, definitely a skeptic.
Well, now I can tell him that we work at the same studio as him.
Oh, that's right. He's on this network. Yeah.
So,
oh my gosh, she's probably like those people with a Ouija board
girl?
on there.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God, she's putting Ouija
Thought
boards
I never had to see
on
her
everything.
Again. Well,
nope.
Well, what was I gonna say? Shit.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Here's my thing. this was my favorite part of that class. So basically you had to pick a topic that was like a quote weird belief, and then you had to talk about it in any way you wanted based on your beliefs. You just had to back your argument.
Oh, okay.
And that was your senior. It had to be like 40 fucking pages, but like you could do it on whatever you wanted. And like I ended up, there was like a practice paper beforehand that was worth like a very large chunk of our actual senior sem, because he was like being very kind. He was like, if you do better on the practice paper, like I'm going to remember that come your actual thesis paper.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to write a practice paper because instead I said, after this class, I have to go to my shift as a ghost hunter. So like, can I just like bring equipment from my job here and like take a whole class and do a presentation for everyone on the equipment? And can we just call that my paper? And he went, yeah, that's fine. And I got an A.
I pulled that fucking trick all the time in college, because I'd be in any class that wasn't journalism. I'd be like, well, I know how to use a camera and edit. So I'd be like, how about I just make a video and a presentation instead of a paper?
If you got it, flaunt it.
And I learned how to code and make websites. So I was like, how about instead of writing like a 16-page paper, I just make a website? And they were like, wow, oh my gosh. And I was like, okay. So I just like went on like Squarespace didn't exist, but I went on and was like, here's my cool, it has a bunch of pictures, and people were so pissed. They were like, what the hell? And I was like, I will avoid writing a paper any way I can. I
really dug the fact that it was like the second to most important paper I'd ever write in my undergrad life. And he was like, yeah, you can just bring in your EMF detector and call it a day.
Smooth move, my friend.
He is friends with me on Facebook now, and he definitely knows what I do for a living, and he probably wants to...
He's probably like, I didn't do my job right.
Have a big fat argument with me. So, okay, so anyway, the question was, are they magicians or mediums? So, surprisingly, actually not really surprisingly, because they didn't know what we know, or what you're about to know when I tell you how all this was done. But a lot of people thought that they were mediums, and so they really did incidentally further the spiritualism movement, because so many people were convinced that they had these gifts and they were communicating with spirits.
Right.
There were also, dare I say, equally the same amount of skeptics, where they were like, look, no matter what, it's a great show, but like just be upfront that like you're not talking to spirits. And until they died, they never confirmed nor denied either, which was kind of part of...
Oh, that's fun.
I liked it a lot. I thought it was like maybe they're doing it for like clout, or like as their PR of like, who's to say, like it's whatever you make it, blah, blah, blah. But
I like that it's, you make everybody kind of happy, or, you know, you don't upset either party, or like, well, you can be a fan and you can be a fan.
Yeah, it was a really diplomatic way to handle it, I think.
Yes.
And they poked fun at it all the time, and they were like, oh, well, you know, maybe I'm a magician. Maybe I can talk to spirits. Maybe I'm a magician. Like, who knows?
Maybe I can play the banjo.
So, so that being said, their decision to neither confirm nor deny spiritualism, because that question was always attached to like, if you are a medium, then you're confirming spiritualism is like a real movement we should pay attention to. So it was not just that they were covering their own asses, but they were like also making people question and consider this movement.
I see.
And then the Civil War hit. Yikes. It wasn't good for many people.
No, certainly not.
And because so many people were out fighting, or like, you know, now, you know, nobody was around, they ended up losing a lot of ticket sales because people weren't home anymore. And so, or people like didn't want to go out and buy tickets to this kind of stuff. Like they had other priorities they needed to pay attention to. So since their numbers were dwindling, they were like, well, where else could we go for spiritualism? Like people who are believing this kind of stuff, and we could almost like kind of put the veil over their eyes. And they're like, let's go to Europe, because there's like
Sweden. There's an opera singer. Remember?
There is.
I was waiting for you to say Sweden. I was like, she's still over there.
That is actually very funny. But so they went to England because they were like, well, that's where like the Society of Psychical Research is.
Right.
It really is like the Marvel Cinematic Universe every time. I'm like, wow, it's so many overlaps.
Yeah.
It's like how many of these people knew each other?
I love that.
So they ended up going to England because spiritualism was over there. And while the U.S. was preoccupied with the Civil War, and after touring the U.S. for 10 years, they started their international tour. So it went pretty well at first, but I guess everyone over there were much more confident. They were more willing to confront them about whether or not they were real, whether or not they were really mediums. So people there were kind of taking their volunteer opportunities too seriously. And when they were being told, like, here, tie me to this chair and tie me as hard as you can, they were literally like cutting through their skin. Like they were like making them bleed because they were trying to tie them as fucking tight as possible. And or that's at least what we thought was happening. The Davenport brothers were like, ow, you're hurting me. And a doctor who happened to be in the audience was like, they're not doing anything. They can't cut off your circulation that bad. Just do the act. Like people were being real dicks about it.
Whoa.
And so
okay.
their poor little like hype man, Reverend Ferguson guy, they were telling him to like cut them out of the ties. And they were like, we're walking off the stage. Like people are being mean to us. Like we're being heckled. People are trying to hurt us because they like would rather hurt us than like just enjoy a show.
Yeah.
And so they started walking off of stages and they ended up in like causing riots because people were pissed that they weren't getting answers out of them because they're little dodgy, like, oh, who's to say what we are? England was like, no.
We don't play this game.
What the fuck is going on?
And also, like, I just bought a ticket. Now you're leaving the stage.
Right.
To some asshole doctor. But also, I love that the Reverend, like, came overseas with them. And I bet he bought his own ticket.
He was like,
boat.
I would happily sail the seas with you.
They're like, we didn't really invite him, but I guess he can come.
He was like, I'm taking this job way too seriously.
Obsessed.
So, they ended up causing all these riots, people in Liverpool especially, and then a couple other places in England. They started like destroying the spirit cabinets. Like they were like,
that's rude.
They were trying to fuck things up. Like they were just so mad. And it ended up being so bad that their next stop was supposed to be France. And then authorities like held them from being able to come in because they were afraid people in France were going to cause riots too.
And they were, trust me, I've been to France. They were going to cause a riot. And it was going to be a good time.
They're going to be, no.
They're going to be really fucking pissed.
So Ira actually quoted saying this, regarding the riots, all of England seemed to have gone mad on the subject of cabinet smashing, and speculative sharpers reached a rich harvest selling bogus pieces of smashed Davenport cabinets.
What?
So people were breaking it apart and then trying to sell it on like basically... like be
bananas.
Like, I have one of the shards of a Davenport cabinet. Give me 500 shillings. I don't know.
Shillings.
Said the pirate. I don't know. But so apparently all of these like fake Davenport cabinet shards, people were like just going to a lumberyard and grabbing scraps of wood and saying, here's a Davenport cabinet.
I have a splinter for you.
Yeah. So that was going on. They were getting like name called and heckled. So anyway, they tried going to France. They ended up being able to get in. It just got halted for a second. There was another scandal right before they went to France where another like practicing magician or like an upcoming magician spread this news that he had actually seen through the curtain and saw that they were like fiddling around with shit and they weren't tied down. So whether or not that was a lucky guess or he actually did see it, he tried to spread it through like the gossip magic world, I suppose.
Oh, yeah.
And
runs deep, I hear.
Runs real deep. And luckily it got kind of like hushed away where it didn't become like a true problem. But it ended up, at least in the magic world, working really well for that like whistleblower because he ended up seeing what they were doing, or at least whatever story he made up. He updated the Davenport cabinet and then put it in his act, like stole their act. So he was just
rude.
Like an evil one. But there were some good magicians who really liked them because even if they were like, I think it's kind of like icky that you're tricking people and making this a spiritual thing. But as illusionists, like you got something real good here.
Yeah. And honestly, I think it's better than the people who were like, oh, I can contact your dead daughter for you. Like that stuff is so much more sinister to me than like, oh, come, we'll show you a fun show on stage. Maybe it's ghosts, you know?
Well, so one of the people that really liked them happened to be, so his name was Hamilton. Like he didn't have, he was like known as like one word, like Hamilton.
Oh, got it.
Apparently he was the son-in-law. He was a magician too, by the way. He was the son-in-law of Jean Robert Houdin, who, if you remember, is the namesake of Houdini.
Yes.
So totally he was like one of the first ever like real illusion artists. Wow. And when Harry Houdini was like 8 years old, it was like the only book he ever read. Yeah. And so that's why he calls himself Houdini. His name's like Eric or something, but he calls himself Houdini. So
Eric.
So Hamilton, who was, I guess, him and his father-in-law had a lot in common since they loved magic, at least. Can you imagine if you like that was the thing you bonded up? You met like your girlfriend's dad and you like are now like having like a magic war. You know?
I'm just saying the girlfriend definitely had a type where she was like, I want to marry someone just like my dad. No, like literally just like my dad.
I'm pretty sure
like
she was P.T. Barnum
tricks.
or something. And so anyway, so Hamilton, he reached out when he found out about this like scandal about like them trying to get like outed for not, you know, being spiritual or like summoning spirits. And he basically wrote to them being like, that guy's fucking jealous. Like whether or not you're like spiritualists, like you were still doing a great trick. And like he broke the magician's code of like, so like we're still on your side. So it ended up not being too bad. And fun fact, Houdini also really liked them. So I want to give you credit because that's one of the things that I was thinking of, like at least people like Houdini who wanted to like lambast all of these mediums and like who were damaging people. At least these people were like, we're not going to tell you what we are. We want you to, it's up to for interpretation. And I think Houdini was kind of into that. He was like, yeah, you're doing your own thing and you don't care what people think, but you're also not hurting anyone. So,
and not to be like that guy again, but to totally do it. Chris Angel, I feel like has the same approach where he's not like,
I would say like, so.
Who knows how it's possible?
I feel like I feel like that's why I always mix him up with David Blaine because they both kind of have that vibe for a while of like, obviously it's just magic, but it is pretty unbelievable that you like kind of question.
Yeah, like I feel like it's our brains can't totally comprehend it.
Like,
at the same
how
time.
are you walking on water? What is going on?
I used to read blogs. Oh my god! Listen, I had a problem for a while there.
Did you like the Chris Angel TV show?
Yes, I used to watch it like obsessively, and when I learned that I guess he had dated Britney Spears, and I had like a meltdown because I was like, I'll never be as hot as Britney Spears, and I wanted to marry him, you know. And so anyway, I had him I had a lot of years of really questionable.
Wait, he did? He dated Britney Spears?
Listen, that's what was on a blog, so I could very well have just read some random user on the internet saying that.
That
but
makes
I think so.
If that's the case, I really feel like it explains so much
about ZB.
No, I don't know.
I was thinking like he's dating Holly Madison, like they're all dating these like super hotties, and I'm thinking like.
Well, I was gonna say I never understood how Britney got to like a space where she's writing things like "I'm a slave" and like that feels Chris Angel-y.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, I feel like that song makes a little more sense now.
I'm gonna Google it because I could totally be making that up.
Let's pretend it's real. Let's just. For the fun
they
of it.
totally dated. Yep.
Fun. Okay.
Chris Angel intended to, this is a Vice article. Chris Angel intended to transform Britney Spears into birds at 2007 VMAs.
I'm sorry. Could you say that again in slow motion, please? Wait a minute.
Let me put on my journalism voice. In today's news.
Reporting live at 10.
Reporting live. This is Christine Schieffer of ATWWD Radio. Breaking news we just received. Chris Angel intended to transform Britney Spears into birds at 2007 VMAs. According to mid-aughts magic sensation Chris Angel, you explode into a flock of birds. At least that was his plan for Britney Spears.
I have heartburn because
what's going on?
That was so enjoyable.
Can you just like look at them? Oh, sorry.
It makes sense.
It's wild.
Kismet. That was Kismet. Can someone please take that picture and then Photoshop birds into it?
Do you know I have a Photoshop picture of me with Chris Angel? Listen, okay, I've said too much. I've said too much.
Can someone hack into Chris's computer for that picture only? Actually?
Nope, the end. It's somewhere on Facebook. I'm going to delete it right after we finish recording.
I would like a picture of you being in like a cuddle puddle, like you're the middle of the hug sandwich between like David Blaine, Chris Angel, and then like Zach Bagans and like and then Patrick Stump. Like just like all four strong gothic men holding you.
It's too much for me to handle.
You'd be so sturdy. Wow, you would just be.
Oh my god!
You would never fall.
I would just be a big puddle of like emo.
It would be that would be at least 800 muscles pressed into you. Wow,
well, that got weird.
It got exactly what I wanted. I didn't know I wanted it until it happened, but I was like, yeah, this is right. So anyway, that being said, other magicians were who usually try to expose frauds like Houdini. Houdini himself wasn't doing it, but there were still magicians who I guess still had a vendetta. Some people I guess had a problem with the fact that they were claiming to also maybe be spiritualists. So surprisingly, the one magician of the time who was known to be debunking people was like on cool terms with them. And then there were other magicians trying to steal their act.
I see.
So anyway, so they got to France. And then there was another scandal where a volunteer examined a cabinet and then intentionally tried to break off a railing from the seats and then announced to the audience that he found spring-loaded seats in there.
Oh boy.
So just to like cause like a panic, I suppose. And he like the audience did freak out and the police had to like clear the room.
Oh my God.
And
It's like vandalism.
and then they ended up for the rest of their tour in France getting like an order where they had to limit their seances to only like 60 people or something.
Oh my goodness.
They also traveled to Ireland, Germany, Belgium, Russia, Poland, and Sweden. And their first public seance in St. Petersburg was the biggest one. It was attended by 1,000 people.
Oh, wow.
So they also held seances for celebrities, royalty, like emperors, very notable people. They would do it in their homes. They would do private seances for these people, and they would perform for scientists and the press who were trying to debunk them. In 1868, they returned to England, and the Anthropological Society appointed a committee to investigate them. And not just that committee, but there were several scientific studies, probably like the SPCR and things like that. They were trying to scientifically categorize or find data about spiritualism and like being able to summon spirits and all these sorts of things. So they were part of a lot of new experiments to see if they could try to like analyze this or contain it in some way.
Makes sense.
But every committee that investigated them and every scientific study that they did that was probably still a little bit trying to debunk what they were up to, nobody could ever pinpoint them with any fraudulent activity.
Oh.
So one of the people actually doing a study on them said that the spirits were, quote, absolutely true and belonged to the spiritual order of things in every respect. And this is where it gets kind of fishy. There were some trials where they last minute just decided they weren't going to be a part of it because the committee's standards or what they proposed to do didn't, it wasn't like to the standard that the Davenport brothers wanted, or like they didn't like the conditions. And so they would just decide last minute they didn't want to be a part of it. And it just sounded like, all of a sudden they were being told what was going to happen and it was going to out them. So skeptical reporters did say, like, the ones that got to like tie the knots and things like that, or investigate the knots, or investigate how they were being tied down, or things like that. Skeptical reporters did say all of the knots looked like you had to have been a sailor to know that profound of knot tying. So they're probably not ghosts. They're probably children who were taught rope tricks since childhood by daddy. So in 1876, the brothers toured India. They also toured with a guy named William Marion Fay, who was also an up-and-coming performer, and E.D. Davies, who was at the time the premier ventriloquist of the world's best ventriloquist. So they were basically their own little illusionist circus or traveling situation. I'm not sure.
The traveling situation.
The traveling situation. That was what we did last year.
That's certainly what we did.
Remember
nothing more, nothing less.
Remember when your mom called this like the murder radio situation?
Oh my God. She literally called it like the murder situation show. And I was like, the what? She's like, your murder situation show. And I was like, well, that's rude.
I dare you to say she was wrong, though. So
she was definitely right, but it was 3 weeks in, so we were taking ourselves very seriously. and now I'm like, okay, yeah, she was onto something. But.
So these shows, though they seemed to be the traveling situation. I mean, sorry. The traveling situation, even though it seemed to be more about magic and illusionist stuff, it also had like some weird like competitions involved. There was also spiritualist stuff. It was just like a weird variety show. And then they planned on going to Australia. But once they got to Australia, before they started touring, William got sick and he ended up dying at like 36 of tuberculosis / consumption.
That's so sad.
There was a newspaper article in the Hobart Mercury in 1877, and it wrote, "The Davenport Fay Company are in the north making money fast. William Davenport, however, is not likely to enjoy it long, for he is evidently going really to the land of spirits." And then very quickly after that, he died that summer right after marrying someone. And there was also speculation about whether he actually died from TB, but Ira's great-grandson, Doc Davenport, which just sounds like a magical person in the woods. He sounds like he's a sailor, but like
he sounds like a mad scientist.
Like the only people on his ship are like little woodland creatures. But yes, like a mad scientist also. So Doc Davenport, who is Ira's great-grandson, he confirmed for people that William did die of tuberculosis. And he also, like, in this, like, confirmation decided, like, he was feeling a little zazzy and decided to throw in some drama at the same time. And talked about William's scandalous love life.
Oh, yeah.
And said that William was once actually secretly married before he was married to his wife, when he died in the same year. There was another woman no one knew about named Ada. Ada, it has an H at the end, so I'm not sure. Ada.
Ada, yeah.
Isaacs Mencken, who was at the time the highest earning actress. And she herself was very scandalous because she had no problem with nudity. And she was known.
Neither did he. He was taking his pants off on stage all the time.
She probably saw one of his shows and went, that's the one for me.
That's my guy.
Found him. Apparently, she was famous for like this one play she did where she rode a horse across a stage naked.
Cool.
Maybe he was at her show.
Didn't like Daniel Radcliffe do that?
That's Equus. I think he just stood by the horse. He did get naked on stage. He did get naked on stage. It was not the same show though. Just different naked people in horses.
Different naked horse shows. Got it.
The naked horse situation.
Yeah. Oh God, that is not our podcast, to be clear.
And so he said that they were secretly married, and they were secretly married, as in like they were never legally married because she was legally married to someone else.
Okay.
And they apparently had a rocky relationship because she was married to someone else. But after he died, Ada confirmed for people that her son was actually his, not her husband's. Tea Time Tuesday. Oh my God.
Oh my goodness.
So
that is drama.
When William died, so that was also just thrown in there with like, no, he had tuberculosis. Also, while we're talking about things that went down.
Way.
So when William died, which this sounds like something I would do for you if you died, Ira allegedly, quote, ordered a magnificent memorial for him on which was carved a representation of their act. So it was like this carving shrine made of ropes, cabinets, and other seance props.
Oh, yeah, you would that's an M move all the way.
I'd be like, why isn't there a Lisa Frank Ouija board on your gravestone? I don't understand.
You would just tape it on, yeah.
But apparently in Australia, I don't know if it was because it was in Australia or he died in Australia and this was all set up there. But after he made the shrine, he never got permission from the cemetery and they couldn't take the shrine. So it's actually like the monument is placed outside of the cemetery.
Oh no.
So like his ghost is just like looking like, oh, it looks so great.
It's like I'm sure it looks awesome, dude. Thanks.
So it was placed outside instead. In 1911, Ira also would die, but just before he did, their friend Houdini exposed them.
Come on.
And he was like legitimately, like they were pen pals. They would visit each other. Like they were friends. But I think
something happened.
Maybe he thought Ira already died and he like let the cat out too early. And then like it was like, oh shit, he's still alive and just heard what I did. Like,
oh, awkward. He saw my tweet.
Yeah, exactly. So literally like right before he died, he told everyone, this was a quote, and it's in his book called A Magician Among the Spirits, which by the way was quite a reference to all of my notes.
Okay.
So Houdini said, while on tour in Australia for himself, he was also on tour in Australia, I hunted up the grave of William Davenport, and finding it sadly neglected, I had put it in order, fresh flowers planted on it, and the stonework repaired. Ira, the surviving brother, was so touched by this act that he taught me the famous Davenport rope tie, the secret of which had been so well kept that not even his sons knew it. And so, fun fact, in the book, there's also a whole paragraph dedicated to Ira's love life. People are just
oh, man.
Which his isn't like as like negative dramatic or like scandalous dramatic, but it is kind of wild. Apparently, Ira literally had like a love at first sight moment with his wife who did not speak English. And he was touring in France And then he
right.
saw this woman after his show and had the translator that was with him just say, like, will you be my wife? And then she said yes. And then apparently...
Okay, but what if the translator like mistranslated it and it was just like, do you want to get coffee? And it's like, he wants to marry you.
Well,
awkward.
If that's the case, then like the coffee date went real well, because apparently Houdini said that he had like never met a couple that were just so in love.
Aww.
So they were like having a great time. So anyway, so Houdini, I'm almost done, sorry. Houdini also wrote that Ira often said that he and his brother, again, never claimed to be mediums or pretended that their work was spiritualistic. They just kind of avoid the situation. But Houdini did say that Ira and William kind of let their parents die believing that they did have superhuman powers. They never told them to think anything else.
Okay, that's nice.
Here's another fun fact, which is kind of special until you realize that like Houdini like straight up told their secrets to people. I'm gonna pretend it was like for a good reason or like a sweet reason or something. But Ira, when right before he died, his final words to Houdini were, "Houdini, we started it, you finish it." And so I guess because Houdini was the only person he ever told his cabinet trick to and his rope trick to.
Wow.
So he was like,
how touching.
he was like, I'll fucking finish it. And then he just,
I'll do. I already did. I actually did
like,
it on Twitter
just
a few hours ago.
Don't check the tweets.
Don't
like,
check Twitter.
Let's just put your phone on Do Not Disturb. It's okay.
Trust me.
So the most successful successors of Ira and William was actually the guy that they went on tour with, the William Fay, as well as another guy that worked for them called Harry Keller. And basically, once William died, Ira tried to go back out on tour with William Fay, and apparently it was just too hard, and so he ended up leaving. But William Fay and Harry Keller ended up getting together, and so they ended up going on tour together as like their, the grasshopper becomes the master or something. Whatever. What's the thing? The grasshopper.
That's what I was trying to say earlier when I said they got bigger than dad, or made, I don't know. Yeah.
Kind of. Generationally speaking, this was like the second time in a row. I know that sounds wrong. The grasshopper.
I think those are two, maybe they're two separate.
It's
like
two things that I'm mixing up at the same time.
The student becomes the master, and then like
the grasshopper
young grasshopper young grasshopper
becomes the birds in Britney Spears' hair. Yeah.
That's right, at the VMAs in 2007. Yes.
So
it all makes sense.
Anyway, two of their like their proteges, I suppose, ended up becoming another successful team, and they kept the Davenport Spirit Cabinet part of their act. But what they did is when they were traveling everywhere, they realized that the cabinet was like way too heavy and inconvenient to travel with. So they would literally build them for each show and then just abandon it there. And so for years, there was just all these abandoned Davenport cabinets all over the world.
Wow.
All right. I don't know if it was all over the world, but it was at least in a few places like Mexico. There was apparently Keller went back to like Mexico a couple years later and like saw it right where they left it. Like no one touched it.
I want one so bad.
Someone go to Mexico and get me one of those.
I would love Davenport
So
armoire.
they ended up leaving them, in different towns. I wonder if some of them still exist. If you know of them, please take a picture and send it to us.
Please take it and send it to me.
That has to be worth millions, though. Now, I mean, it was like it's over 100 years old. It's almost 200 years old.
I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna find one.
Just like what, like hotspotted
on
or something?
eBay. Yep.
So after they died, Houdini took their acts on and used them in his own performances, which he did have permission for. Probably because since he learned the trick, I think maybe Ira knew what he was doing when he told him the secret, because he knew Houdini and he knew that Houdini was there to expose frauds. And if Houdini could have had a new, really spectacular act to prove that you shouldn't trust what you see before your eyes, I think Ira kind of gave him the permission on like, this is what we were doing.
Especially with that line, like, you finish it,
Exactly. So Houdini ended up taking on the act himself and doing it. And therefore, the Davenport brothers weren't just influential in spiritualism, but also in the magic world, because they now have one of the most famous early acts.
I love that.
And this... basically it because they never again confirm or denied, and they just kind of used their what are we as like almost clout or a PR campaign, it ultimately furthered spiritualism. So they accidentally did that too. So now before this ends, I am going to tell you how it was done, this cabinet trick, because I've been letting it linger, and then I'm done.
Well, I'm going to get one soon anyway, so you might as well teach me now.
If not, we can just build one. We'll just get a big old, there's a wardrobe somewhere.
Can we just make the Blues Clues wardrobe into a Davenport cabinet?
It's the Blues Man group's wardrobe. Okay, we'll shop it. We'll shop it.
We'll shop at that,
so
please.
Here's how it was done. The volunteers were all plants. So,
I was wondering that earlier.
Not like succulents. Like they were like...
They brought cacti in with them, yes.
No, they were a setup.
Planted in the audience, yeah.
Yes. So I said it, and
Wow.
there was a silence, and I was like, she thinks I'm talking about fucking flowers.
It's like, wow, what a weird surprise. Yeah.
So the volunteers who joined them in the cabinet were plants, and so they were able to also help kind of dishevel
pull
things.
Their own pants down, probably.
Bingo. And also like play instruments and, make the whole room shake and clatter. And Ferguson was also a plant because they knew how much he loved them.
Ferguson.
So remember, the two acts were, at first they're in the cabinet alone, and the second one is when they would have a volunteer planted in the audience. So the first one, they didn't have a volunteer. So they how were they doing it by themselves in there then if they really are tied down?
Oh, sure.
So in those cases, non-plant volunteers who were there to tie the knots, remember they still had someone come up and at least tie them down, they would just pick people who looked like really like the wealthiest ones, or like people who who looked like other people do work for them, basically. And so they were like, I know they don't know how to tie a knot. So
smallest biceps, really. Yeah. Smallest forearms.
They don't look like they were a Boy Scout. So
right. Interesting.
They don't look like they're a sailor, or they don't look like they're strong, or
like a laborer.
Exactly. Like they look like they've really never moved in their life.
That's hilarious.
So they knew that no matter what, they would do a shittier knot. And then if they actually were getting like surprisingly tight with the knot, if you just go like naturally people are going to stop. And so they would do it before it ever really hurt. They would just act like they were too tight. And so they were just guaranteeing it was always going to be kind of loose.
Gaslighting everybody. Got it.
Yeah. And also the wincing made it look really good for the show too. So
right.
So
look
they
how
were
strong you are.
Exactly. Oh, you're so strong.
Aww.
Yeah. So that was basically how they did it with the people who weren't actually plants. They would just pretend that they were tight. They were just loose, the ropes. And then if they, for the flower, I still don't understand how they did this. I'm guessing they basically had whatever the version then of wet wipes was in a pocket. And so they would put all the flour, they had the flour in their hands. They would, quote, tie themselves down. And then once they were able to wriggle free, they would just put all of the flour back in the pocket, do a bunch of shit, and then wipe themselves off beforehand with something wet that would collect the flour.
Sure. And then put the flour back in.
And then put it back in their hands and wriggle back into the ropes. So, for the levitation acts that they did, all of those were during the dark seances where it was pitch black. And basically they would just tilt someone's, notice how everyone, by the way, that levitated, they were mostly children.
Right.
So they could lift the chair kind of easy on their own, and you only had to lift them a little bit, and the human mind freaks you out enough to think that you're all the way up at the ceiling.
Ooh,
so if you just tilt one side of someone's chair and kind of brush the top of their head, they think they hit the ceiling. So
oh my God.
So they would just fuck with people. Just being in the dark, people are already psyched out, and they just manipulated that.
Well, and there's also instruments that you probably don't hear it if they're scraping or if you're messing around.
Yeah. So that was their levitation. When it came to the actual ropes and untying themselves, like I said, they were always relatively loose, but it was the construction of the cabinet itself, because the way that they were tied in with the ropes is so that it was one massive rope. Basically, they would, let me make sure I read this right. So the benches had 2 holes in them, and the brothers would be facing each other on the benches. The rope would be tied first around brother number 1, let's say Ira. So it'd be tied around his knees, and then it would spiral downward all the way to his ankles. So all his whole shins, calves are wrapped up. Then across the way. So it would get to his feet, and then that rope would keep going, and start at William's ankles and go up his knee. So that way they were tied to the same rope. They were on different ends of the same rope. And then the same thing happened with their wrists. And so in layman's terms, because that's all I've got for you, is they would kind of be like really tense as they were tying, letting people loosely tie them. They would super tense themselves. And then they had this kind of dance choreography down where once the door was closed, if they relaxed, there was already some slack. But also if the way they kind of had to do like a team effort where if I removed his hands this way, there was now all of a sudden like a foot more slack of rope for William to have. And so it was almost like rowing a boat and they were in sync. So
that's kind of amazing on its own.
Yeah. So like you could like get yourself, at least your legs free enough to wriggle if like both of you worked together. And then when they knew the door was going to open again, they'd put it all back on and then just like stretch and tense up as hard as they could. So it looked like the rope was taut.
Wow.
And so here's the other things that they would do just to like guarantee nothing would happen. Before or during private performances, because remember they like had like famous people having shows or like hosting shows at their houses. They would let's say this famous person was like Chris Angel. No, Britney Spears, because
Swedish opera singer.
Yeah.
Birds. It's a bunch of birds.
So they would if there was like an audience of like 10 personal people at this house, they would, because it caused, to prevent spirit collusion, one of the ways that they would keep that from happening is they would have to tie strings to everyone's button shirts. It makes no sense, but they would weave string through people's like button-up shirts buttons. And it would all connect almost like they were tying them up so nobody could get up to go like exploring while the lights were off. If that makes like literally
yes, it makes sense.
Tying them together, like roping them together, but with something so tiny no one felt threatened.
Right.
And so they would say it like avoided or prevented spirit collusion, which makes literally no sense.
For sure.
They just didn't want people getting up and looking around. Next, they said that they also had they had at least 10 plants in every show. So it wasn't just like one volunteer. It was at least 10 people they could rely on. And they also placed traps in the aisles so nobody would try to like bull rush the stage and like see and try to mess with the cabinets when they were in there. And that way no one would sneak on stage and surprise them. So anyway, that's how it got done. And that is the Davenport Brothers.
Wow. They seem much more reputable to me than the Fox sisters. I
guess they weren't, I mean, I guess they were trying to like trick people, but they weren't trying to, part of the shtick was like, you didn't really know what the truth was.
They weren't like taking advantage of like vulnerable people in my mind.
And they weren't flat out lying either.
Right. Exactly.
Like the Fox sisters.
Wow. That was a fun one, Em.
Thank you.
For our pseudo Christmas episode.
Yeah. You know, Christmas is magical.
Christmas is magical sometimes. Probably not this year, but we'll see. All right. My turn?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I know I said that this was not really a Christmas story, but it actually kind of is a Christmas story.
Oh, shit. Okay, cool.
So here we go. Happy holidays, everyone. This is a big one people have been asking for since day one. So this is like, here we go, is all I have to say.
How do I not know what this is? Okay.
Of JonBenet Ramsey.
Oh, Christine. Oh, Christine.
Yeah. It's a doozy, as we like to say. It's a boozy doozy. So get your drinks because you need it.
You know what? I have a carton of ice cream at home that now I have a reason. I haven't even heard the story yet. I can't wait to go home and finish that off now because I'm going to need it by the end of this.
Yeah, I got my box straws downstairs, which is happening directly
Let me get cozy.
This.
Let me take my orthopedic slippers off real quick. There you go. Okay. Someone, by the way, I saw you on Twitter. Someone said something about my fish flops, and you were like, "Why are you wearing banana leaves on your feet?" And I was like, "Hey, they're."
I said that?
No, someone on Twitter. I'm saying I saw you. Whoever tweeted that. Someone said that my fish flops looked like banana leaves, and I was like, "They're fish."
Excuse me. They look like dead fish. Thank you very much.
They actually do kind of look like banana leaves because I went and watched the episode where that tweet came out, and I went, "Ooh, yeah." You can only see like a little green and a little yellow. So anyway,
well,
orthopedic slippers off.
Orthopedic slippers are off. Everybody have your drink? Okay, great.
Yep.
So this is a wild tale. How much do you know about this, Em? I'm curious.
I got to be honest,
anything.
for someone who has 200 episodes of a true crime podcast, I literally know nothing at all.
I think you and I are pretty good about like keeping out of it, like preparing for the other person to do a story.
Well, even then, like, I certainly didn't actively try to not learn about her. I think I just like somehow moved past it every time. Like, people are usually shocked when they hear the like, I don't really like outside of this podcast have an interest in true crime. Like, a lot of people during Marvel Monday will be like, what's your favorite like investigation discovery show? And I'm like, I literally watch none of them. I don't know. So like this stuff, unless you tell me about it, I don't know.
Yeah, because when we started the podcast, it was very much like a divided, like, this is your like forte and this is my forte.
Yeah.
And there's a reason we split
like,
sides.
let's teach each other about it. So.
Exactly.
I know it's the blonde girl, and I know, I guess she went missing. Because everyone's like, where's JonBenét Ramsey? And she was like in a toddlers and tiaras kind of situation, and people think the brother did it. That's what I know, and that's it.
It's pretty solid summation, I will say.
Cool.
And when we get to the end, I think that might be just a good theory, just a good like recap of all of the above. So,
got it.
I'm just gonna get into it because this one confounds me. It stresses me out. It frustrates me. I've watched every single documentary on that I can get my hands on at least twice. Like,
at least
and then
twice.
again for this episode, I just find it so fascinating. And it's okay. I want to preface too, it's one of those things where a lot of people have very strong opinions, and it's one of those things where every documentary has such an angle, like whether intentionally or unintentionally, that almost every time I watch a documentary, I'm like, wait, okay, so he did it or she did it.
So they do a really good job of convincing you it could be anyone.
It's sort of like one of those things where you could kind of go a lot of ways, and I'm pretty open-minded to a lot to
do you have a personal preference or like an opinion on what happened?
I do.
Okay. We'll hear about it by the end.
Yeah, I'll tell you at the end what I think. But again, when I say what I think, it's not like I know that happened. It's kind of like that's where I'm leaning, if that makes sense.
And apologies in advance in case this gets me as fucking wild and riled as last week's.
I hope it does.
I got real fired up about that, and I felt bad. I went home and was like, shit, like, I really hope I wasn't, like, too intense.
No, I felt bad because, full disclosure, everyone, Em had to go to their funeral, the Zoom funeral, so I was trying to rush through the story, so I hope it didn't come off like I was, like, pushing past your comments or anything.
Had I been here for one more minute, I would have missed the memorial service for sure. So
yeah, I know that I was literally watching my clock like, oh, that's interesting, Em. Anyway, I hope it didn't come off like that. I wasn't trying to be like dismissive.
No,
but truly on this one especially, I rewatched five documentaries for this, like in the last 48 hours.
How many hours of work do you think you put in for this?
Well, I hate to call it work when it's just like, because after the notes were done, then I was like, I'm just going to like binge all the documentaries. And so it was technically work, like prepping my mind, but it wasn't, hard work. And then I'll tell you at the end too, like what my favorite documentaries are if anyone's interested. Okay. Sure. So if you do have questions, Em, please ask because I am in a headspace to discuss this. Okay.
Oh my God. I love when Christine's in a headspace.
I've been in a weird headspace all day.
I kind of am digging it though. Like whatever's happening, it's frenetic. It's electric. I'm like, okay, let's go.
I'm feeling like jazzed up. All right. So this is a Christmas tale because it occurred on Christmas.
Okay. So I was like, yo, like
yeah, you were like, wait, holiday? Hold on. Yeah, it occurred during the holidays. So it technically 1996, the day after Christmas. Patsy Ramsey, mother of two, headed downstairs very, very early in the morning. She lives with her husband and two kids in Boulder, Colorado. As she went down her spiral staircase, she noted 3 pieces of A4 sized paper laid out neatly on one of the stairs.
Okay.
They had writing on it that read, Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully. And this is kind of a lot of paragraphs all over the place or whatever.
Okay.
Like, this is the definition of there's paragraphs everywhere, look out, or whatever that thing was called.
This is a lot of paragraphs. Why don't I just literally look up what that...
No, because it's way more fun to make up a new one.
I know the word paragraphs is at the end, and the like gist is there's a lot of them. Like,
and the gist is like it's pretty chaotic, so buckle up.
That's what the article should have been called. It's pretty chaotic, so buckle up.
So that's what's happening here, and it is a bunch of paragraphs, and I'm going to read it to you and just like let me know what you think, I guess. Okay. Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. We respect your business, but not the country it serves. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession. She is safe and unharmed, and if you want her to see 1997, you must follow our instructions to the letter.
Whoa.
You will withdraw $118,000 from your account. $100,000 will be in $100 bills, and the remaining $18,000 in $20 bills. Make sure that you bring an adequate size attaché to the bank. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so someone there is Diva. Got it. That
Please
sounded
don't.
a little. I don't mean to stereotype, but it sounded a little fashion forward. It was like, bring the appropriate size attaché, and don't you dare bring two.
Yeah, and also like no reusable tote bags, please. We need to look professional here.
Exactly.
When you get home, you will put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on delivery. The delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested.
Oh, shit.
If we monitor, oh my God, if we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early to arrange an earlier delivery of the money and hence an earlier pickup of your daughter. Any deviation of my instructions will result in the immediate execution of your daughter. You will also be denied her remains for a proper burial. The two gentlemen watching over your daughter do not particularly like you, so I advise you not to provoke them.
Oh my God.
Speaking to anyone about your situation, such as police or FBI, will result in your daughter being beheaded.
What does that face mean? Does she get beheaded?
No.
Oh my God, what? No, she doesn't. Does she?
No, she doesn't.
Oh,
No,
okay.
She does not get beheaded.
Wow. You have a lot of power right now, and you could tell me anything you want, and I'd be like, oh my God. Okay, she could be beheaded. Fuck. Okay.
If you talk to the police, she will be beheaded.
Holy
If we
shit.
catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies.
What? Okay,
I
so
think
like,
that was trying
just
to
means-
say like anyone.
don't be distracted by absolutely anything. Just get
Yeah,
this
or like
job
don't
handled.
let this leak anywhere, even to your neighbor's dog or something.
Holy fuck.
If you alert bank authorities, she dies. If the money is in any way marked or tampered with, she dies. You can try to deceive us, but be warned we are familiar with law enforcement countermeasures and tactics. You stand a 99% chance of killing your daughter if you try to outsmart us. Follow our instructions and you stand a 100% chance of getting her back. You and your family are under constant scrutiny as well as the authorities. Don't try to grow a brain, John. You are not the only fat cat around, so don't think that killing will be difficult. Don't underestimate us, John. Use that good Southern common sense of yours. It's up to you now, John. Victory. Signed, SBTC. So that's what she finds on the stairs. Day after Christmas.
Good morning. Wow.
Hello.
Okay. My opinion so far, this is not the thing to focus on, but I'm wondering why 118,000 specifically.
Good.
Yeah.
Glad you noted that. Yes.
It's just such a weird, like, at least round it up. Like, come on.
Exactly. Exactly. Ding, ding, ding. Red flag.
If we're playing escape game rules, then SBC, whatever, I imagine that's like the first initial of each of their names or something.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
And, or maybe like it's like the acronym of like a sentence that they, or like a belief or something.
Yeah, because they wrote victory before it.
Yeah.
It's odd.
So it sounds like anonymous when it's like you like expect us or whatever.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So I don't know what I think. That's terrifying.
Good. Because I mean, to this day, I still don't 100% know what I think. So
What was that was the weird part.
It was weird. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction.
Okay.
Is that the part you meant?
Yeah. I was like, great.
Yeah.
It does. Okay.
It's just odd. Obviously, it's just like it's just wild.
So also my big fear, like I've just seen enough like horror movies where like the thing that I'm real panicked about, like I should be more panicked about like a child missing who might get beheaded. But like my current fear is when I hear like you have a big day of like finding her is going to be really difficult. That sounds like some Saw shit. Like,
yeah.
You better rest up because we're going to start breaking bones tomorrow.
It's so weird. It's like the delivery will be exhausting. So
Yeah,
I advise you to be rested. It's
I
like,
would be
okay,
prepared.
so take a nap? Like, what?
I would be prepared like, oh, you're going to torture me. I imagine you're going to torture me.
Yeah, or like make this a living hell somehow. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Anyway.
Weird. So she finds this letter, and it's 3 pages on the staircase, like laid out, handwritten. And Patsy immediately rushes. She yells for John, who's dressing upstairs. She rushes to check in on her daughter, JonBenet, who was nowhere to be found, was not in her bed. So she and John wake up, or she wakes John up. She gets him downstairs. They check on Burke, the brother. He's in his room. And despite the warning to not call the police and obey orders, they call 911.
Okay.
Which I mean, I get it. Like, I think I would have done the same.
Yeah, sure. I would have. Sorry.
I mean, what else are you going to do?
Sorry, kids. But like, I would have. My really like cynical side would have come out where if I got a letter like that, I would just assume whoever was being held for ransom was already dead. I'd be like, because there's those sick people where it's like they died the second I kidnapped them. I just wanted to like fuck with you.
Yeah, it happens. And what else are you supposed to do? So she calls 911, and I'm going to read you the 911 call, aka role play it by myself. So wish me luck.
Great. Okay, I'll be the dispatcher, but I'm not going to interact at all.
Okay, so I'm going to be the dispatcher, actually, and Patsy, because I'm going to say the whole conversation.
Perfect.
But you're just going to have to guess who's who.
Okay. I think I'll figure it out pretty quick.
You will. 911 emergency. That's Patsy. No, I'm just kidding.
That was actually the news reporter from the bird story.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. 911 emergency. And then there's an inaudible noise, and Patsy says, police. 911 says, what's going on? 755 15th Street. What is going on there, ma'am? We have a kidnapping. Hurry, please. Explain to me what is going on, okay? There's a note left and our daughter is gone. A note was left and your daughter is gone? Yes. How old is your daughter? She is 6 years old. She is blonde. 6 years old. How long ago was this? I don't know. I just found a note and my daughter's missing. Does it say who took her? What? Does it say who took her? No, I don't know. It's there. There's a ransom note here. It's a ransom note? It says SBTC Victory, please. Okay, what's your name? Are you Patsy Ramsey? I'm the mother. Oh my God, please. Okay, I'm sending an officer over, okay? Please. Do you know how long she's been gone? No, I don't. Please. We just got up and she's not here. Oh my God, please. Okay, please send somebody. I am, honey. Please. Take a deep breath for me, okay? Hurry, hurry, hurry. Patsy? 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 This was then followed by 6 seconds of some inaudible sounds in the background, and then Patsy hung up the phone.
Oh, okay.
So that is the 911 call. Obviously, it was a lot more, frantic and emotional than my dry reading of it. But to give you an idea, this is the chaos that ensued that morning.
Sure.
So that was at 5:52 a.m. on December 26th of 1996. Operator Kim Archuleta was speaking to Patsy Ramsey, who was calling about the disappearance of her 6-year-old daughter, JonBenet, from their home in Boulder, Colorado. 2 minutes later, Patsy and her husband, John, call their family friends, the Whites. And the Ramseys had actually been over at the Whites' house the night before for a Christmas party.
Okay.
So at 5:30 p.m. on December 25th, the Ramseys the night before Christmas, the Ramseys had arrived at the Whites' family party, and they stayed there until 8:30 p.m. and arrived home around 9:15.
Okay.
JonBenet had fallen asleep in the car, so John Ramsey carried the sleepy JonBenet up to bed, and they hadn't seen her since. So that was the last they had seen her.
Okay.
So back to the next morning, December 26th, police officer Rick French arrives at the Ramseys at 5:59 a.m., and the White family makes their way over to the Ramseys' house, and they arrive at 6:35 a.m. So Rick French did an initial search of the house inside and outside, but he didn't find anything out of the ordinary, and so he called for backup because in a situation like this, time is of the essence, especially if it's a kidnapping. So Detective Linda Arndt is also on the case, and she arrives around 8:10 a.m., And during this time, John was making arrangements to try and get this ransom money set up.
Okay.
So he and Detective Linda Arndt are waiting for this call because the letter said the call will come between 8 and 10 a.m.
Right.
So he's called his bank. He's like, I need this money. And then they sit around and he said every time the phone rang, they jumped, waiting.
Can you imagine? Like, I feel every second would feel like a century.
It would. And you can't do anything but wait, which is my nightmare as the most impatient person on the planet.
Right.
Yeah. So the forensics team then arrive. They cordon off JonBenét's room to prevent contamination of any evidence in her room. And by 10 a.m., the cutoff time for the ransom note, no one had called. Nobody had been in touch about the ransom money.
Okay.
So at this point, they're panicking. They're fearing the worst, that these people had found out that they had called the police and had, gone through with their promise of beheading their daughter or murdering their daughter. Because at this point, they're thinking, well, we did call we broke the rules. So maybe they found out.
Just like how earlier when it was like, well, she called the police, and then you and I were both like, yeah, I would call the police even though they said not to. Because like, I at least would, if I found out later that something happened to her and I could have called the police, I would fucking hate myself.
Yeah, like you have to do something, right? I mean, I'm like, you can't just sit around and wait and trust that the kidnapper has your best intentions and will actually go through with it. Like,
and then my anxiety would kick in after I hung up the phone, and I'd go, fuck.
Yes,
like now I'm upset that I did it. So
now
like,
it's a game of like hiding it.
Yeah. And now like, I mean, I totally get why they're like so paranoid about like, shit, we should have not done that. Should we have done that?
Yeah, and the cutoff came and they had not heard. So they're wondering if, their daughter had suffered the consequences that were outlined in the letter.
Right.
So in the early afternoon at 1 p.m., Detective Arndt pulls John and Fleet White, that's the friend's name, the dad of the other family, the White family. His name is Fleet White. And at this point, she has been left alone at the scene. So the other officers have all left, and they've left Linda Arndt alone at the scene to kind of handle things. And I guess, according to her, John was so restless and agitated and anxious that she was like, I gave them a mission. I gave them a task, basically, to kind of get them doing something. So she pulled them aside, John and his friend Fleet, and told them to do a top-to-bottom search of the home. And this home, I don't know how much everybody knows about this story, but it's a mansion. It has 15 rooms. It has 13,000 chandeliers. No, that's the Winchester Mystery House. It has 15 rooms.
In my mind, my first thought was like, damn, like that is eerily like Sarah Winchester. And it didn't cross my mind that you were making a joke. And I was like, oh my God, that's crazy.
The chandeliers.
It's like, I don't know why my brain was so slow on that update, but I was like, that's bananas.
Well,
and then I was
a
like,
seance room downstairs too.
Everything had 13 hooks and there was one shower. What is going on?
And a lady wandering around up half stairs. Yeah. No, this was a more American, new build mansion.
Only 12,000 chandeliers. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. It had 15 rooms and it was 7,500 square feet. So like,
still, holy shit,
massive. I mean, massive.
I mean, it's the shed at the Winchester house, but it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. It's big for a family home. So
wow.
They decide to work from the bottom up, and they head to the basement. It was during that search that JonBenét's dad, opened the door to the basement's what they called the wine cellar, because of course they have a wine cellar.
If you've got a house that big and you don't have a wine cellar, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, like what are you even doing? What's the point? So they have this wine cellar room, and they had this is also where they hid the Christmas presents for the kids.
Oh.
So he opens this room, and immediately he spots JonBenét's favorite white blanket on the floor. And there's something underneath it. His horror, it is the body of his daughter, JonBenet.
So before you say anything else, let my novice brain process that. So there was no league of foreign factions or something. It was just like
or if there was,
they were in the house and right. Or they were in the house and like, I'm assuming killed her before I imagine they brought her downstairs, killed her, and then gently placed those 3 pieces of paper on the stairs and then left.
Right.
Just so they could wake up and think they even stood a chance. So I was right. So like by the time like the kid was already dead.
Yeah. Long story short, she had already been dead. Exactly. When
Okay.
the ransom note had been found. Yes, she was dead.
Jesus.
So as far as things that we like know for sure, that's one that we know for sure.
Wow.
So when he found her body, her mouth and neck were covered in duct tape. Her neck was wrapped with a white nylon cord. So when he finds her, he screams, picks up her body, runs upstairs, and lays the body next to the Christmas tree in front of the detective and all the people who had been there to kind of lend support. So he brings the body upstairs, lays her out. He's crying over her. And Patsy is described as like wailing. Somebody describes as like banshee wailing like over her dead daughter's body. And so this is obviously like just the most wild outcome of, day after Christmas for a little 6-year-old girl. And so I guess just some background on JonBenet, because that also ends up being a huge factor in this entire story and why it's such a huge case.
Okay.
So JonBenet Patricia Ramsey was born 6 years before this tragic incident on August 6, 1990 in Atlanta, Georgia. And she was named after her parents, JonBenet, so JonBenet.
Got it.
And her mother, Patricia, which is her middle name's Patricia.
Classy. I mean, that's a fun way. I had a neighbor across the street whose dad name was John and mom's name was Donna, so her name is Jonna.
Yeah, I love that. That's fun.
Yeah, it's a fun little thing to do.
My name would be Bernada.
My name would be Larry.
Oh, well, that's not bad.
Yeah, that's okay.
Bernada's pretty terrible. Okay.
At least Larry's an actual name. Yeah.
At least Larry's a real name. Oh, no.
Anyway.
Or it'd be Renhard, which is also terrible. Okay, anyway.
No matter what, you sound like you're part of like a bike gang.
Yeah, good for me. Aw. I'm part of a small foreign faction, actually.
You know what? I knew it. It sounded something right. Okay.
Oh, boy. Okay, so she's named after her parents. And John, the dad, was a multimillionaire businessman. He was the president of Access Graphics, a computer system company. And her mother was a former beauty queen. She had been crowned Miss West Virginia of 1977 and had participated in Miss America pageants and so on. So this was John's second marriage. He had had 2 kids before, and then he also had 2 kids with Patricia JonBenet and her older brother Burke, who was 9 at the time of JonBenet's death, but had been asleep when the note was found. Okay. So whether because she wanted to follow in her mother's footsteps is what Patricia said, or whether her mother was vicariously trying to live through her daughter, which is what the media said, JonBenet was also very active in beauty pageants.
Okay, that I know.
Yeah, that is like the big selling point of this story, the media circus, the cause of the media circus. I remember 1996, I was like 5 or 6, and I remember like seeing those pictures of the beauty queen on every magazine at like Kroger. Like every magazine had like slain, murdered, it was horrific. And I remember being like, holy crap. And it's like this, very made up.
Maybe that's why I have that one image of like her face, because I'm used to only like the tabloid cover of it, and then I know nothing else.
It's a very famous photo. And we'll put some of those in the video itself here. But so she started doing pageants. And according to Patsy, she said, she went to a pageant with me. And she said, when can I start doing that? I want to start doing that. Now, there's mixed, there's a lot of mixed opinions about this. I'm personally not a fan of beauty pageants. Yes? Oh, sorry.
This is where I tell you that it's kind of, I'm going to make it about me. Get ready.
Always. I'm ready.
It's very interesting that that this is the story that you picked on the day that I talked about my Gammy, because in 2008 she was Miss Senior New York.
What?
Yeah, she was a beauty pageant queen.
Stop it. Gammy is like orchestrating this episode, and we know it.
Truly, I mean, what are the odds that I would like have this like feeling I needed to talk about her today, and now you're talking about beauty queens? But that one of her proudest moments and like her last few years where she was like totally with us is she fought tooth and nail to win Miss New York, and I remember it was so fun because the whole family came to go to her beauty pageant and like see like her talent and everything. Obviously, her talent was singing "Afternoon Delights," and there was one woman that ended up being the runner-up that she hated.
Oh, I love it.
And so I got to hear like all like the senior beauty queen drama behind the scenes.
And I bet that's rich stuff.
It was good. Look, my Gammy knew what was going on.
Oh,
and she
I don't
like
doubt
they
it.
took it seriously. Like apparently like Miss Senior America is like you actually do a lot of really wonderful charity work. So a few years after she won, she was busy all the time. They had her going to all these different events. Like it wasn't just like it wasn't just a title that like happened and then nothing ever came from it. Like she was like booked solid for like 3 years making appearances and shit.
Cool.
So
anyway, I'm so proud of her.
Anyway, that's my gams.
What
okay.
a badass. I love that.
Yeah.
Aw. Yeah. So basically it was a scenario where, you know, Patsy said she took JonBenet to a pageant and JonBenet like fell in love with it. And like that could have been the case, but she did start doing this at age like 2 or 3. And, you know, I don't know if you've watched Toddlers and Tiaras as much as I embarrassingly
sure have. I didn't watch Toddlers and Tiaras, but I watched the spin-offs, every type of spin-off with like Mama June and Honey Boo Boo. That was my thing for a long time.
I watched Toddlers and Tiaras for a while there. It's pretty depressing, but like you really see some wild
stuff,
parenting. Like, and I'm not one to judge a parent. I'm not a parent, as you know, all know, except to my dog. So I'm not one to judge parenting, but it gets to a point where it's like, you know, they're putting like these intense spray tans and fake teeth, and you know, it gets like really wild. And it's like very, you know, a big argument in the
pageant world.
No, like the like the public opinion, court of opinion, let's call it.
Sure.
One of the big arguments was like, you know, you're sexualizing your child. She's wearing like, I mean, in photos, she's 6 and or 5 even, and she looks like she could be like 25. Like
really?
Yeah. It's like airbrushed. I mean, the makeup and like super short skirts and like bikinis. I mean, you know, it's the whole pageant thing.
Yeah. I mean, I could argue though, like they're too young to understand the like, you know, what things they should be valuing, or like, you know, it's fun when you're older. I think like it's fun to do because you can kind of separate like, oh, I'm doing this for the pageant versus this is what's important in the world. And like if you're 6 and you're getting awards because you look this way or you act this way, like it can become a little a diva.
And you're competing with other girls about like how you look and how you shake your butt. Because again, like with the talents, it's like, sure, they do talents, but it's not like barbershop quartet talents. It's like you shake your butt to a, you know, cowboy song,
right,
and you win like a big trophy. And I mean, and there's all sorts of problematic stuff in there that like everybody kind of knows what I'm saying.
We get it.
Yeah, you get it. So essentially Patsy was like the stage mom. She was a stage mom.
Sure.
For lack of a better term. So she was, JonBenet was like caked in makeup, dressed in tight clothing in most of the images that we see of her. A lot of people, you know, argued she was being sexualized by the pageants, by her mom. And a family friend, Judith Phillips, remembered that at one Christmas party when JonBenet came down the stairs, she had this like really aggressively bleached blonde hair. And she pulled Patsy to the side and was like, "Are you dyeing her hair?" And remember, this girl's like 4 or 5 at this point.
Right.
And Patsy responded, "No, it's from the sun." But like,
okay, wow.
She was like, definitely not.
Did you take her to Mars? What?
Did you take her to the sun? Oh, okay. Yeah, especially with the tan. Yeah, so it was like, she was, you know, really prissing her up.
Actually, I think Mars is farther away from the sun than
I know. I wasn't going to say that because I was like, I could be wrong.
I always get mixed up with Mars and Mercury. I was trying to say Mercury, but then I thought, that can't be it. And then I just said the wrong thing. Whatever.
We all went to Mercury.
Wait. Okay. Everyone pretend like this is getting a... What, are they taking her to Mercury?
I like how you say, let's pretend it's... Instead of like, hey, just cut this part in. You're like, let's just all pretend it was...
No one knows, Christine. Just you and me here.
We're not actually going to edit it.
Just you and me here. Wow, she looks like she's from Mercury. She's got such wonderful hair. Crazy. Like, sun-kissed.
Sun-kissed. Sun-smacked.
Yeah.
Smacked in the head, yeah. Mm-hmm. However, different to JonBenet's mom, Patsy, JonBenet was not showy herself. She wasn't like the typical, like, you know, like, she was outgoing and bubbly, but she wasn't like seemingly upset. She wasn't seemingly like as in love with pageantry as
it wasn't her passion.
Perhaps not. I mean, it could have been, but here, I'll just explain. So the same friend, Judith, recalls that once her daughter went over to play with JonBenet and saw her room, which was full of trophies, and JonBenet like didn't really want to talk about them. And then when her friend asked, JonBenet said, "They really belong to my mom."
Oh, that's sad.
So like that's a good glimpse into like that's how she viewed it, as far as this is my mom's thing and I'm doing it for her, with her, you know.
I'm her accessory. It is how it kind of feels, of like, this is I'm just a pawn in something that she's up to, or, you know.
Yeah, like she's in charge of this. It's not, I'm not leading the way in this hobby, I guess.
Yeah,
This is not my hobby.
No one asked my opinion is what's happening here.
And like, you know, my mom forced me to play piano when I was miserable for like literally 16 years, but she didn't force me to wear like bikinis and, you know, spray. So there's different levels of that. So anyway, the Ramseys had moved to Boulder only a few years earlier from Georgia, and pageantry, you know, is something that tends to be more common in the South. And Patsy said that although her daughter had a gift for performing, it was just one of her many hobbies. Although in the book she and John later wrote, called The Death of Innocence, pageantry was the only hobby they discussed of hers.
Huh.
According to CNN, the 6-year-old JonBenet took home first place for Little Miss Colorado, Little Miss Charlevoix, which is in Michigan, Colorado State All-Star Kids Cover Girl, America's Royal Miss, and National Tiny Miss Beauty.
Damn. Okay.
People also, she was a beautiful girl. Like, she was really sweet, very, you know, like the ultimate pageant girl, like you'd see in a movie, like just picture perfect, blue eyes, you know, blonde hair.
Also, I appreciate that, like, she's like not even quote trying as hard, or like it's not even it's like not even as investing for her as like it might be for the other kids, and she's just like
raking it in,
cleaning up shop. Okay. Yeah.
People magazine also reported that JonBenet won the local Little Miss Christmas beauty pageant.
Sweet. Okay.
And to be clear, like, she did this a lot. So she a couple days before her death, her last performance was actually singing at the local mall. Like, she did like a Christmas concert. Okay. So like she did perform a lot, and she was like very, you know, bubbly and like into it. Yeah. So she was definitely like good at it.
Clearly, damn.
Yeah, clearly, right.
She's like, I'm not even trying. Like,
I know. this little thing.
Oh, you mean all my little Miss Sunshines or whatever they're called? I forgot.
Oh, I love that movie. So there's an excerpt from a book called We Have Your Daughter by Paula Woodward. There are a lot of books on this case, unsurprisingly.
Yeah.
The excerpt reads, by the Monday following her body being found on the prior Thursday, the networks were already involved. It happened so fast and it was so competitive. Within a few days, we learned that the networks were interested and her child beauty pageant pictures had been leaked and sold to the media by the photographers who took them.
Oh, fuck off.
Yeah, and it became international. So like every photographer who did a photo shoot with her was like, oh, great, $5,000 or whatever. I don't know the price. Like, here's her portfolio. Oof. And so now they had these like, you know, skimpy photos of her plastered everywhere. I mean, it made for like the ultimate media circus, you know, for lack of a better word. Like,
truly.
It just was.
Also because like there's nothing wrong with looking like that sometimes, but like this was not the time. Like this was not the place, I feel like your pageant pictures. Yeah, this isn't a performance. This is a crisis, and we need to be paying attention to it.
Yeah, it was sort of like, you know, wealthy white family, tiny blonde girl. Plus, she's living her mother's vicarious dream of being a pageant star. Look how like she's being sexualized, and now she's murdered. You know, I mean, it was a whole thing. So let's see. So the whole world at this point is like invested in this story for obvious reasons. And Boulder itself was known as a very peaceful town, very low crime rate. So it's actually, well, it was, I guess, because there's also a fun fact here from episode 198, the Shanann and Chris Watts story.
Yeah.
Boulder's only 34 minutes from Frederick, Colorado, where they lived.
Oh.
So I guess things have gone downhill since then. But
it's a radius I don't want to be a part of.
Yeah, a couple like high profile things are happening here.
Something in the water.
Something in the water. So, but at the time, and probably still, Boulder has a very low crime rate. And I saw in one documentary, they had like 1 or 2 murders to deal with a year. Like a year. And so now they had this like wild homicide of a child. So as you can probably imagine, the police didn't really know what the hell to do. And keep in mind also that it's the day after Christmas, so a lot of people are on vacation,
right?
And can't come in.
Not enough people are even there to like properly do this job.
Yeah, and like remember when I said they left that Lisa detective alone at the scene, and detectives later admitted, like the supervisor said, like, I made a huge mistake. I shouldn't have like left one officer alone at the scene to just kind of like run everything.
Well, I remember when you said like when you were the dispatcher and you said like, oh, I'll have an officer out there, and I was like, an officer? I was like, can you get a squadron out there, please?
Yeah,
Damn.
can you get the FBI helicopter? Yeah. I mean, that house had to have a helipad, right, for helicopters.
What else are you gonna do with all that space? I get you wanted a wine cellar, so you got a 7,500 square foot house to match, but like.
Maybe they put it where the
there.
seance room was. I don't know.
Right.
But so they were stretched thin, basically. And on top of that, this is not a thing that they've ever had to deal with. So they're stretched thin. It's Christmas. It's already a small town. It's already not prepared for this kind of thing. So shoddy police work would forever be associated with this case. Just like last week, like police work was not top notch here. And admittedly, like from later investigators have said, like, we made mistakes.
At least I can respect that. At least they owned it. Okay.
Exactly. Some of them.
Some.
So on the morning that JonBenet was found, the Ramsey, so this is just kind of a summation of all of this shoddy police work. On the morning that JonBenet was found, the Ramseys had friends coming in and out of the house. They were passing the ransom note back and forth to read it with each other. Friends came over and cleaned the kitchen. Like, this place was just
tampered.
They were swarming this place. Friends were coming in and out. Yeah, they were passing the letter back and forth, trying to read it, trying to figure it out. And police were there. Like, this isn't like before police arrived. Police arrived within minutes. So they didn't properly cordon off the home, basically, as a crime scene.
Sure. Also, like, the dad, like, literally picked up the body and, like, brought it upstairs.
That's one of the biggest ones, for sure.
Which, like, if there's anything I've learned, there's two things I've learned in my entire relationship with you. One, cyanide smells like almonds. Two, do not ever touch anything until a proper investigation has been handled. Praying to God it is a proper investigation.
I have a new fact for you, though.
Oh, my God.
Or a new fun statistic.
Mercury's closer to the sun. What?
That the science is not something I can help you with, but
Britney Spears is birds. What?
That one I already taught you.
That one's no. Yeah.
As far as like true crime, apparently, which I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, all you actual forensic people out there, but apparently, if you find a loved one who has hanged themselves, human nature is to cut them down. So a lot of times, if you find a person who has been hanged and like nobody cut them down, it's a little fishier, like.
Oh.
Okay, this was just in a story I read where somebody had been killed and then hanged to cover it up, and they were like, "Well, it's so weird that they wouldn't try and take her down."
No, that makes sense. I think. Sorry, I was trying to put myself in those shoes, but absolutely, which it makes no sense because if they're already gone, then like, what does it matter? But the first thing you want to do is try to bring comfort and help. So like, it's like
maybe they're still alive. You don't know. I mean, and like that's So it's human nature, I guess. As far as I've read, again, this is caveat. Like I just read this in a book. I don't 100% know that it's true.
Right.
But apparently, it's human nature. So, but yes, check. Okay.
Potential fun fact: PFF.
PFF.
Yeah.
But also, if you do come across a body, check if they're alive, because a lot of times people don't do that, and it's like, well, shit. Now we don't know. She could have been alive still, or she could have.
Also, if you're in a car crash, or if you see someone in a car crash, unless it's a dire emergency, do not pull them out of the car because you could do so much more damage to them skeletally.
Their back could be broken.
Yeah, or it could not be broken, and then you break it because you're pulling them out, and all it needed was that one last tug. So
yeah, or their neck, or you could paralyze them. Yeah. Anyway, point being, there's nothing you can do is correct. In any circumstance.
Wait, okay. Book closed. I've aced the class.
Yes.
That was the secret to the entire course that I was waiting on. Okay.
Without even a term paper.
Everything you do is wrong. That's bingo. Okay.
Don't worry. It goes for me too. So the ransom note, they're passing it back and forth with people. And they only sectioned off JonBenet's room as opposed to the whole house being treated as a crime scene. And the investigators just like my opinion, should have investigated the house as rather than letting the dad and his friend investigate the house.
1000%.
Just like the wildest thing. Like, oh, here's a task. Go search the crime scene for your dead daughter.
If I ever walked into a crime scene, if there's one thing I know, it's like, just fucking walk right back out and call the police.
Yeah, don't touch it because you're going to tamper with it. Yeah, exactly.
Or like then I incriminate myself by accident. Incriminate as in like now I'm added to the suspect list if I've been touching shit. Like
yes. Yeah. So my advice is check if they're alive, because if they are alive, you could call 911 and have help CPR and so on. If they are dead, immediately call authorities and don't touch anything.
Bingo.
Exactly. Yeah, that's my advice as a really low tier podcaster who knows not much about anything.
As someone who has an opinion, that's mine. So.
As someone who has an opinion about things that I don't deserve an opinion on, that's my opinion.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so private investigator John St. Augustine said on a podcast called The Killing of JonBenet, the Final Suspect, quote, when you're doing an investigation much like this where the initial call is a kidnapping, it is crucial that the crime scene is provided with forensic sterility. What that means is you try and maintain the crime scene as best you can. And so what happens in this case is that we have a major contamination of the crime scene. Not only do we not move the family from the crime scene when the call comes in, we actually allow the family to introduce their friends, their pastor. So there's never really any security in this investigation. And again, like you said, he grabbed the body, carried it upstairs, laid her out. Then her mom started crying over her. Mm-hmm. Like nobody, I mean, the investigator checked and said she is passed. So they checked she was dead. Sure. But they didn't preserve the body. You know what I mean?
I would assume there are a lot of information that my untrained eye does not see. But like if there's a body lying on the ground, how it is lying on the ground could probably tell you a lot. Or like
yes, yeah.
There's some clues that people have been trained to look for.
Especially like it was wrapped in a blanket, like maybe there's clue there.
How was the cord tied? Does it look like someone's left-handed or right-handed?
So that actually stays into play. Like that they were able to
they never took it off?
As it was like tied around her. So
and they never
the rope was tied around her, etc. So as much as they were like crying over her, nobody like cut it off
messed
or
with
anything
that
like that.
That's weird because I without thinking like what logically I should do, if I like saw like my mom, in that situation and there was a rope wrapped around her, I would immediately want to rip it off and be like, I don't want you to look this way,
Yeah, I think it was like a really thin nylon cord, so it wasn't like an aggressively big thing, but also it was like very much secured to her, so they would have had to like cut through the nylon rope. I don't know. That part did stay on and became evidence later. So anyway, onto the investigation and what they found. So I just want to warn you, the autopsy is a bit gruesome, especially it's a child, it's upsetting. So the autopsy revealed that JonBenet had died from asphyxiation due to strangulation, in addition to a skull fracture that was 7.5 to 8 inches in length.
Holy shit.
Huge.
8.5 inches?
Yeah.
And she's a 6-year-old.
To 8. Yes.
So her whole head was like 8 inches.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
Like a tiny person. Okay.
Yeah. Exactly. So there were also 2 stun gun marks on her face and on her back.
Stun gun marks.
Yeah.
That feels like a really important piece of evidence.
It does, and it honestly throws a wrench into a lot of the theories. I will say that, okay. Because the stun gun is kind of like, wait, stun gun? Like it just adds confusion.
I think my first thought would be like, oh well, then I know through what I've heard about JonBenet Ramsey that a lot of people think it was the brother, but if the brother is 9, like he doesn't have a stun gun.
Right. Like the family didn't end up having a stun gun as far as we know. Okay. So yeah, exactly.
Sorry. Continue.
No, but that's exactly like why that was like a really weird piece of evidence. So yeah, stun gun marks on her face and back, and there was evidence leaning toward sexual assault as well.
Fuck. Okay.
Yes. So there was no evidence of rape and no semen, but the pathologist recorded that it appeared there was chronic inflammation of the vaginal wall, and it was also thought that her vaginal area had been wiped with a cloth.
Okay.
There was a garrote that was made from a nylon cord and a broken handle of a paintbrush that was tied around her neck. And I described what a garrote was in like episode 8 or something. Do you remember?
No, I heard paintbrush and I kind of just landed on that one.
Yeah, so it's basically a garrote is when you have a rope and then or a strangulation method, and then you use a bar or tool, a brush or whatever to as extra leverage to
I see. Okay.
strangle somebody.
Got
if
it.
that makes sense.
Yeah,
like
that
you
does.
use it as kind of a
torque.
a lever.
Yeah.
Yes. Which is also a weird detail of like a very specific tool of murder.
That's like obviously her being dead is a pretty clear indication of intent, but like something like that is like, oh, you really wanted to like do something.
And somebody knew what they were doing if they made a garrote. Like, and by the way, the garrote was made of a paintbrush that came from Patsy's art kit in the house.
Interesting.
So
they're also like able to improv something like that.
Yeah. So it's like if it was made in the house, somebody knew how to make it. They didn't stay home and watch WikiHow or read WikiHow. And
which like
make
if I ever were going to be like a murderer, I would be WikiHowing like how to not get caught by the police. Like
and I would definitely be that guy who forgot to go on incognito mode and just like immediately sent it to all of my,
I would
Gmail
accidentally
contacts.
text that link to the police and then be like, oh no, please.
You'd be like, oh, is this how? And it's like, you're FaceTiming the police department. No! They're going to see my handmade garrote in the background. Yeah, that's us. This is why we're bad at everything. Anyway, this is why we do everything wrong, as we like to say.
Bingo.
So the autopsy, now this is where things just get weirder. The autopsy also revealed that in her stomach, she had undigested pineapple.
Okay, so that was the last thing she ate?
Yes,
okay.
And it indicated that she had eaten it a few hours before her death, as it had not yet digested. So it was far enough along that you could tell it was pineapple, but it had not been digested in her small intestine yet.
And do we know what the time of death guesstimate is?
No, I don't think so.
Shocking. Usually that's the first thing I hear about on SVO.
I know. And they don't have that. All they know is that she was dead at some point before the police arrived.
It just lets you know like how like incorrect Hollywood is sometimes, because like anytime I've watched Law and Order, it's like they just want to, that's the first thing they always tell you, and it's always like, oh well, she died obviously at 3:29, and I'm like, oh my god. Yeah.
They like easy? smell her hair, and they're like, this is a 6:18 murder.
It's like there's like an invisible clock. They like once you get the degree in forensics, you like see this clock. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I don't believe I have an estimate time of death.
Okay.
But it was basically proof that she had eaten pineapple within the hours of her death, which happened sometime that night, the night of Christmas.
Okay.
So apparently John and Patsy were very adamant that they had not fed pineapple to JonBenet. But
wasn't she at the party though? I'm sure there was a fruit platter.
So they found the next morning, when I guess before the friends were all cleaning up the kitchen, the photos from the crime scene show a bowl of pineapple on the kitchen table.
Okay.
And
it's a weird thing to lie about.
Well, it had Burke's fingerprints on it.
Okay, this is where that is. Okay.
And it also had Patsy's, but again, she's the mom. She's admittedly has done dishes, so it's not that weird that the moms are on there. But JonBenet's fingerprints are not on it, but Burke's are.
Okay, so go on.
The parents were like, we didn't feed her pineapple. Like, we don't remember doing that. That's not a thing we did. But so there was a dish of pineapple, apparently pineapple and milk, which I'm like,
sounds great.
It sounds gross.
I'm thinking of it as like one of my favorite like Thai foods is like when they do like the mango sticky rice.
Yeah.
Do you know what that is? I mean, I imagine it's like pineapple and coconut cream could be kind of good.
I just hate milk. Like pineapple or like I hate.
I know you hate milk.
I just feel like it would curdle. It would curdle the milk. I don't know.
Never happened to me.
Okay, pineapples and cream maybe I could get on board with, but like milk just sounds.
I'm thinking pineapples and cream taste good, so like milk isn't that far off, and it makes it less disgusting to me.
Yeah, I guess.
Also, they're like two of my favorite things to put in my body. So
I do love pineapple, and I like milk. So yeah, I guess. So They found a bowl of pineapple on the table, and it was found to have Burke's fingerprints on it. Now, there wasn't a timestamp on the fingerprints, but Patsy and John were certain that Burke had slept through the night and only woke up when the police arrived at the house. And by the way, he stayed in his bedroom the entire time that the police were there. And when they later interviewed him, he just said he was scared, which, understandably, you're 9 and your sister's missing. So Patsy and John were interviewed briefly after the discovery of their daughter's death, but they refused to be interviewed separately. They insisted on only being interviewed together at any point, which not a great flag.
No, because like they need to make sure their alibis check out in theory.
Their stories line up. Yeah. So they only conducted their first formal statement interviews on April 30th, 1997, which was 4 months later.
I was going to say, wow.
So, yeah. So because the police were like, no, we want to interview you separately. So it took them 4 months to get to that point.
Jesus. Okay.
In the meantime, however, much to the irritation and almost like hurt feelings of the police, they were happy to go on CNN and do news and press and media coverage. However, they refused to talk to police. So it was
interesting.
Not a good look.
Yeah.
And they had hired a media consultant, and I'm like, maybe that media consultant was just bad at their job, but it wasn't a good look. And it honestly really hurt their case because on January 1st, 1997, you can watch clips of these interviews, and they've gotten a lot of scrutiny. And you'll see why if you watch.
Okay.
So you can hear Patsy say, "We have to find out who did this," before John continues, "Not because we're angry, but we've got to go on." Then they say, "For our grief to resolve itself, we now need to find out why this happened." And in one of the most famous quotes from this interview, Patsy makes the plea, "Oh my God, I wasn't looking, and I just saw Robert out of the corner of my eye, like moving across the screen. Now I'm holding him.
I think he just wants to be seen. I think
he just wants some love.
Yeah, he just needs a little love. Everyone needs a little love.
He wants to be center of attention.
He looks so handsome.
Maybe we should just zoom in on him for the whole episode.
Okay, that's just no one needs me anymore. It's been like an hour.
No.
That's all for you.
Maybe every time it cuts to me, he's like, wait.
He's like, my turn. I'll say the quote. Okay.
Okay. So in one of the most famous quotes from the interview, Patsy makes the plea to everyone in Boulder, "Tell your friends to keep your babies close to you. There's someone out there."
Yikes.
So this interview is interesting. It did not bode well. They decided they're not going to interview with police, but they are going to go on national television.
Okay.
And this backfired because people did not take well to this look, because they didn't have the most like emotive response.
Like they seemed cold and careless to it?
Not careless, but definitely just like a little distanced or like composed, very composed.
Like Homeboy in the last episode, the other Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
Like how because he did a really good job for a second, right? He like had a total meltdown, but then like when they would talk to him, he was like a little too chill.
Yeah, and they were like, "You haven't cried once about them, your daughter's missing." Yeah, but you've cried about other things.
Right.
So it was weird.
Is it kind of like that?
Yeah, it is. And I've like mixed feelings on that, because on the one hand, like, sure, you expect people to behave a certain way, but on the other hand, she's a pageant queen. Like, she's been trained to perform her whole life.
Composed,
so like, yeah, be composed. Exactly. And she's probably rehearsed this a million times to like prepare, and she knows the world is like looking at her as a suspect.
Well, so like also, my big thing too is when like the way that my emotions process is like, I'm kind of like all or nothing, where like I have all the emotions immediately, and then I'm just numb. Like I'm just like, I can't fucking feel anything.
Yes, exactly. And like I can shut down and be like, I'm just distancing myself from it. So like, I don't like when people kind of just critique it based solely on how they expect someone to react in a scenario like this.
Sure.
Especially because, they've had, I imagine if I were in this scenario, which I can't imagine, but if I were in this scenario, I imagine I would get a very strong prescription for Valium, for whatever, to like tranquilize, like to just like not have a fucking
1000%.
freak out. And so in one of the videos, and I hate to make this speculation, but I'm going to do it anyway, she almost talks
Drugged.
in a way where I'm like, she could be talking on like Klonopin. And only because I take Klonopin, so I'm like, I can tell when sometimes
like the zombie voice.
there's like a little, not necessarily a zombie, but just like kind of a calmer demeanor than maybe would be warranted in a scenario.
I feel like when I've ever had to take like chill out medication, I get like zombie voice, like just like brain fog voice, where I'm just kind of like not really aware of my surroundings because I'm kind of just like in another space.
Yeah, you know? And it's like it's just harder to like get riled up and get your adrenaline going. That's the whole point. It's like chemically affecting you.
That makes
so
sense.
I can see why you'd be like, I'm upset, but not like screaming, you know? So anyway, that being said, there were some other issues with this interview that I also find questionable, which is instead of saying like, oh, we're not angry. Which
okay,
I'm
glad you said that because I went.
Yeah.
We got off on a tangent, but had there not been one, I was going to say what freaks me out of anything is him being like, well, we're not angry. We just want to like have closure. And it's like, if someone killed my fucking kid, like, I want you to ask me in 90 years if I'm still not, if I'm not angry.
If I found my child's body and somebody had threatened to behead her and left her in my base. Yeah. If
like, that's like, I don't know if you were trying to like come off as like the bigger person, but like it came off as like you're the fucking weirdo.
You're like you're her dad. Yeah, it wasn't
you should
a good
rip
look.
his fucking face off. Like
the public was not having it with this, especially because they said like we just want to know why, and it's like you don't want to know who, like or when.
I would want to know where you live, and I'd want to know what your biggest fear is, and I'd want to know how slowly I can make you bleed out. I'd want to ruin
many tarantulas I can buy and kill you slowly with spiders. Yeah.
How many little little cockroaches I could like put all over your eyeballs. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
You get
We're going to be great parents.
I could imagine myself as a kid, like, or as a parent being like, you better do the dishes or I'm going to put 5 cockroaches on your eyeballs.
Your worst fears.
I know where the cockroaches are. Okay.
I have a guy. Don't worry about it. And so it was really strange. And she kind of said, like, there's someone out there. And, like, she was warning people. And it was kind of focused on that rather than, like, we need answers. Who the hell is it? Come forward. Like, we want to know who you are. Like, who knows? It was a little bit odd. And the fact that they had refused to speak to police.
Right.
But
yes.
now they were doing media, which, you know, involved coaching from their media coach. So it was a little bit questionable. But Patsy and John said they wanted to warn people that there was a murderer out there. And that's why they did the View, or not the View, the show. They did the public
the talk,
appearance.
The Wendy Williams show. Yeah.
Yeah. They went on Ellen and danced a little bit. No.
Right.
But so there were some other odd details just aside from the weird interview. And this goes back to the evidence. So firstly, the ransom note. Okay, the ransom note is one of the weirdest, obviously, one of the weirdest factors of this whole story. Yes, it's bananas. So if you're looking at it objectively, the ransom note was 3 pages handwritten.
Right.
What kind of fucking ransom note is 3 fucking pages long?
Well, what kind of ransom note is handwritten? Like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Like,
handwritten, like, totally.
Put it in some, cut out Tiger Beat and get some letters, or
Tiger Beat.
Print it out. Like, come on now. Like, it makes me think like they're definitely new to this. And also they left the body. Do you know how, not that I ever want to kidnap somebody, but my go-to move wouldn't be leave the body at the scene of the crime. Like, I would just take it. I would take it and no one would ever find it.
And then write a note and then put it upstairs.
Yeah.
I also want to add that the note was on the back staircase, which you wouldn't have known was the one they used unless you either knew the family very well, or were in the family, or watched the family. Like, they use that back staircase, and that's where the note was left, even though they had like a full front staircase to the front door where you would think you'd leave like a note for whoever wakes up first. So a little bit odd. So it gets so much weirder. It gets so much sketchier.
How?
So, oh my God, this it's just horrifying. Okay, so you're thinking, oh, well, maybe they wrote this note at home and they're just a very, you know, they like to talk. Maybe they're, what's the word? I don't want to say it wrong.
Look what?
Loquacious? No.
Loquacious? Is that a word?
That's not a word. No, it's locution. Wait, okay. Never
Please,
mind.
God, don't think I'm going to help you in this. I thought
It's like
English
the time
wasn't your first language.
It's not, and I'm making a point right now because I still am like having nightmares about the time I said Sisyphean instead of Sisyphean. Anyway, so
I still don't know the difference, so good on you. There's like 10 S's no matter what in there.
oh my
Like
gosh,
Mississippi.
thank you for protecting my feelings. Okay. So, anyway, it's 380 words long. It's 3 pages. It's handwritten. It's really long. It's on the back staircase. And you could think like, oh, well, maybe they just love to hear themselves talk. They wrote it at home and brought it with them. The note was written inside. And do you know how we know that? Because the paper from the ransom note, the paper came from Patsy's notebook.
Oh. I remember you saying earlier that she walked down, she saw 3 A4
size.
So I was going to be like, did she just buy A4 paper?
Yeah, I mean, basically, it came from their personal stash of paperwork. Like,
It
their
just
stationery.
feels okay. So I want to think that it's like an outside job, but like it sounds like it's like they were going to have like, pretending we're on the side of the ransom killers at this point.
Yeah.
In this situation. It's like I imagine them going in there with like a duffel bag, a whole kit, like ready to like, fuck up people's lives, but like they locked the bag in the car. And now they're like frantically trying to like impromptu do everything that they wanted to, but now they're using like the random shit they can find because they like forgot their gear. It feels like everything should have been done first. Like, why wouldn't you want to write a note like that takes a long time on a very...
especially if you're saying you're like some professional part of a foreign faction and
but, like you know all about like the FBI and local law. Yeah.
Like we're watching law enforcement. It's like, you're not coming off very professional if you're writing this kind of...
I feel like you're doing it like off the cuff. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So basically they took this note and they were able to figure out what type of pen, what brand of pen it came from. And guess what? They found the pen and it was in the house and it was put back where it belonged. Like there was a pen that was like in a certain spot.
There's something eerie about putting it back.
Yes. And after this person wrote this note, they took the time to put the pen back.
Yeah, there's something, it's like just too casual.
It's so odd and like time consuming.
It's in a very small way. It reminds me of like the stories you've covered where someone gets killed, like someone breaks into someone's house and then kills them, but then like eats food out of their fridge and shit. It's like, you're just
like has a turkey dinner. Yeah.
So lackadaisical about it.
Yeah. It's really wild. So they basically, by this logic, the murderer was able to find a pad, find a pen, like presumably not knowing where they would be, practice. Oh, I forgot to tell you. They also found drafts of the note in the house.
Oh, fuck off. Okay, so they really just did this like
multiple drafts.
Like, okay, got it.
Yeah. So basically by this logic, they were able to find a pad, find a pen, practice the note a few times, write the whole note, then return the pad and pen to where their usual placements were.
So they were in absolutely no rush. Got it.
Yeah. So this is like wildly alarming, I think. You'd think if you're breaking and entering, you want to get out as quickly as possible.
Right.
Especially if you have this grand plan and you don't want to get caught, obviously. And so in the case of JonBenet Ramsey, which is a documentary, they gave a group of people the task of copying the note out. And it took them on average 21 minutes and 28 seconds to write that entire note.
Holy shit. And they practiced it a bunch of times, so they were in that house for at least an hour.
And that was them copying it verbatim. It wasn't you would have to actually, as you were writing it, you were thinking of what to say.
Right.
As the ransom writer, so it probably took even longer.
Wow.
So it's like, as a lot of people have pointed out online, especially, like they could have gotten the message across in 4 sentences. We want money. We're going to kill your daughter. Don't call the police. I mean, we've seen it a million times. Like, why not just do that?
Mm-hmm.
It's really odd. Instead of being like, make sure you bring the right size briefcase. It's like, what? Rest up a little bit.
An appropriate attaché. It's like, wow, this really is like your first outing as a bank robber. You're like, I'm going with the best accessories for my first moment.
Too hard. Yeah. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, it's also the part about the small foreign faction that you mentioned that is really red flag, because like, what?
It sounds almost like if it's not true, but if someone, I'm going to pretend it's just a complete random stranger and I don't have my own opinion currently. It feels like it's like almost mental instability of like this, like the government's after me or I'm the government coming after you. It feels kind of like, it feels kind of on that vein, but also it just feels like a flat out lie and you're like, what sounds intense and scary?
Like foreign faction.
Yeah.
And I will also add that, okay, actually I'm going to mention this in a minute. But so the small foreign faction thing too, like, wouldn't you say like we are from a powerful league of terrorists? Like
we're a little scary.
Yeah, we're just like on the outskirts of terrorism, but we're trying.
Yeah,
it's like
we're on the fringe. We're trying to break through.
Why would you admit that? It's just weird. So anyway, within the ransom note, the author they've realized made allusions to the films Dirty Harry, Ruthless People, Speed, and Ransom, and the movie Ransom had come out like months prior. Wow. So it was like, this is a little weird that it's coming out right after this movie came out, and it's the allusions. It's almost like someone thought, what would you write in a ransom note? And you made a flowery ransom note where you were like, this is what it would say, just really dramatic.
Truly.
So the other thing that you caught on to immediately was the amount, $118,000. And as everybody asked, why didn't they just round it? Like people
120,
asked for
150.
Anything. Like people ask for $1 million, people ask for 500, whatever. Yeah. But like 118 is very specific. And the Ramseys at the time were worth $6.5 million. So it's not like they were wanting for cash. Like they could have asked for $2 million and, probably gotten them to do it.
Yeah.
So what's most interesting, and this is where things get a little like, so $118,000. Well, that month, John had received a Christmas bonus from work of, you guessed it, exactly $118,000.
Okay.
And although he did get like a write-up in the paper about like his success at work, it didn't specify $118,000. That was a very specific number that you would only know if you worked with him or maybe not even that, only know if you were close enough that you would have had that information.
So at this point, I don't know where we really are in like terms of like the investigation, but have the police already made their own opinions of this? Okay. Are
pretty
they like
immediately.
Are they even thinking like, oh, maybe it's someone from work, or are they pretty sure it's the father?
Yeah, they're convinced it's the family. They're almost immediately, and that becomes problematic too because they really just, it's another thing where like in the last episode they said it's a suicide and then like blinders and
just rode with that one, even though it could have been something else.
Yeah, so they really, it became problematic because it was such a gung-ho theory that like a lot of things kind of got pushed aside evidence-wise. And anyway, I'll tell you, but yeah, exactly. They did immediately think it was coming from inside the house, for lack of a better term.
Sure.
So many people, including police, just thought this ransom note was staged for obvious reasons. And if it were staged, so that means the family would most likely be the culprits of the crime, or at least have something to do with it. And so this is So if we're thinking, okay, the family wrote the note, now this immediately calls into question the chronological order of things as far as the note, checking on the kids, and then the 911 call. Mm-hmm. So the 911 call, in the 2016 documentary, The Case of JonBenet Ramsey, a forensic linguist named Jim Fitzgerald provides an analysis of the phone call, and he questions why. This is some of my favorite stuff, by the way, when like linguists, like forensic linguists and people who look at, writing samples and can like figure stuff out from people's verbiage. I just think it's so fascinating.
It's the things you never think about. It's like, how on earth did someone even make that into a job? And now it's like a successful whole department. Yeah.
Cool. And it's like so powerful, like what you can learn from this. So anyway, he provided an analysis. He questioned why Patsy never says JonBenet's name in the entire call.
Ooh.
She refers to her as my 6-year-old daughter. She's blonde, but like doesn't say her name, which is just seemingly odd.
Right.
She says, instead of saying like my 6-year-old daughter is missing, she says there's been a kidnapping, which I know that like there's a lot more of this online where people really like study these 911 calls, and a lot of times people who are using certain verbiage like I found a body, I found this, or there's something fishy going on.
Really?
If you're
Okay.
like inserting yourself as
Fascinating.
the focal point of the story. And also deflecting. So like not saying someone's name, or saying like there has been a kidnapping instead of like my daughter's gone. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like distancing.
Even if there's like a probable cause for there to have been a kidnapping, because I know if I saw a note like that about you and now you're missing, I would assume, okay, that she's been kidnapped.
Right. But instead of saying like, oh my God, I think my daughter's been kidnapped, I think my friend's been kidnapped, she's saying there's been a kidnapping and doesn't say her daughter's name.
Okay.
Instead of saying like, oh my God, I think someone took my daughter, or I think my daughter's been kidnapped, or someone might hurt her.
This is on YouTube. How did you learn about this?
Oh, so these are basically, they play this 911 call in like every documentary. So you can hear the call. I'm sure it's on YouTube. And the analysis is in, this specific one is in a documentary called The Case of JonBenet Ramsey. But you can find like there are sites that analyze the ransom note that I find. Oh, one of the things that I didn't write down, so I want to mention it real quick. In the ransom note, it uses the word hence. And like hence is not a very commonly used word, but in a church service that had happened like really recently prior to the murder, that the family had written to do a reading or something at church, they used the word hence in that reading.
Ooh.
So it's just like another odd thing of like how many people are using hence in like a frantic ransom note,
and how many people are using it twice.
Yeah, exactly. Like
it's weird that you keep thinking about that word.
That word is just like not so commonly used, and so it's just an odd coincidence. Anyway, so instead of saying like, yeah, something's wrong with my daughter, or she's missing, or someone took her, or someone hurt her, it's like there's been a kidnapping.
Forensic linguistics. That's what it's called?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Yes.
Okay,
yes.
I'm going to go look that up later.
It's so cool. I could read those all day online. They like highlight certain words and like say like
I'm about to literally go into a rabbit hole.
Yeah, do a deep dive, because I've done them in the years ago. It's been a long time. I think when I first started getting into this case, but it's really interesting. Anyway, so and then what's most interesting about this 911 call is Patsy hangs up. Remember?
Right. There's like a weird pause where she doesn't even sound like she's crying or anything. It's just silence.
So there's like inaudible voices in the background, and then she hangs up. But like if you're calling 911 and you're like, my daughter's gone, somebody's taken her, you wouldn't hang up, right? You'd be like,
I'd be like, I'm going to be on the phone and make sure you get here immediately.
Exactly.
Also, the inaudible sounds, like it to me, my first thought is that like if her and her husband were like co-conspirators in this, then like the husband was like whispering advice and like, or saying like, get off the phone, or saying something where if something happened to you and I was on the phone with the police, a car could hit me and I'd still be paying attention to the police. Like I wouldn't
You'd be like, back off, I'm on a 911 call as you're flying through the air. Yeah,
fucking busy right now. Do you mind?
Yeah, it's so actually, we're lucky to live in an age where we can enhance sound and try and figure out what sounds potentially are saying, even if they seem inaudible on first listen.
Okay, technology's fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Forensic shit like this is so interesting. So in an enhanced version of the sound, Laura Richards and Jim Clemente figure out with the help of a sound engineer that in the muffled silence, you can hear a man say, "We're not speaking to you," followed by a female voice saying either, there's two options that it sounds like, oh my Jesus, or what did you do? What did you do?
Those don't even sound like the same thing. Okay. But
I know. I was like, I don't know. But she also had a southern accent. Maybe that was part of it. But and now this is followed by a different, higher pitched voice saying, "What did you find?"
Wait, so there's like a whole little pack of people in here just all talking together? So wait, was it the parents and that party? Was the party an alibi in some way? Or like the party the night before?
Wait, what party?
The party the night before. Didn't they came from a party and then they picked her up and brought her to bed because she fell asleep in the car.
Right.
So was it those people? And they're the only other people I've heard of. So I'm just like running with it.
No. So.
Oh, damn it.
No. So they believe that the first voice is most likely John saying we're not talking to you. The second voice is Patsy. And the third is Burke.
Oh, okay. That's a lot less fun than I thought. I was thinking
but
now,
But is it? Because the dad says to him,
he said, "What did you find?"
The dad says, "We're not talking to you," as presumably to Burke. Then Patsy says, what have you done? What have you done? Or what did you do?
Yeah.
And then Burke says, well, what did you find?
Ugh,
so
like
it's
a little creepy kid. Ugh.
Yeah. Yeah. So if that is what happened, it's not a good look.
Which, if that's the case, like, then damn, I feel so fucking bad for these parents, like awkwardly having to cover for your kid's killer because they're also your kid. Ugh. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Because like now you're going to lose both kids. Right. So then she hangs up, which is also like, why would you hang up? But I guess if Burke walked into the room, for example, for example's sake, you wouldn't want the operator to hear that. So you might hang up before anything else could be revealed. So let's see. And to be clear here also, in all of their statements, including their like April interview with police, Patsy and John insist that Burke was sleeping this entire time. So even if we're not totally understanding it, like there is a voice of like seemingly a child in the background. So seems to me they're lying about something here. Whether it's to protect him and he's innocent, or whether he did it and he's not innocent and they're protecting him, something's up. It's fishy.
Ugh, wow. This whole time I've been like so ready to like punch that dad in the face, and now I'm like, oh, maybe that guy really needs a hug. Like,
yeah, that's why this is such a crazy story, because every fucking documentary you're like, oh my God, it's him. Oh my God, it's her. And even within the family, you're like, oh, it's a family. Oh no, it's like some other guy. It's a stranger. It like, man, they can pull you in every direction. So to Kim Archuleta, who is the operator, which good on you, Kim. And again, thank you to everyone who is a dispatcher operator, because, wow, that's a lot of stress you probably deal with.
Yep.
She was the operator that evening, and she thought the call seemed rehearsed. And as she listened on, while Patsy thought she had hung up the phone, Kim thought she heard a gear shift in her voice. Kim believes she heard Patsy then say, "We've called the police, now what?"
Oh.
Which could go both ways. Yeah, which could go both ways, but it sounds like, okay, we've done the next step in
this plan, or like what's the next on the to-do list. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But it could also just be like, now what? Do we just fucking wait around, or like
do we hide from the ransom guys? Yeah, exactly. You're right. It could be either way. But she did say she felt like her voice shifted from like panic to kind of just calm.
Kind of like when like in a crisis you have to like you just got to get your shit.
Like pull it together. Maybe. Yeah. But obviously, this is not like proof of anything. So the first major theory, obviously, is that the family did it. But the second major theory is that this was the work of an intruder. Seems to be most people are split right down the middle. And so in 1998, a police detective who was like really well renowned, his name is Lou Smith, and he basically had like a 90 to 100% success rating in solving murder cases. Like he was like they brought the big guns in. And he actually came in and determined pretty quickly that he did not think the parents or the family had anything to do with her death. And I'll tell you what he kind of found as far as evidence. He published a book later which argued his side of the case, saying there is substantial credible evidence of an intruder and a lack of evidence that the parents are involved. Now, his key argument was that in the basement there was a window that had been smashed open. And
is that true?
She was found in the basement.
Right. Okay.
So you can see photos, crime scene photos of this. There's a window that has been smashed open. However, this was not a new smash in the window. Apparently, John Ramsey had smashed it months prior because he had locked himself out of the house on a number of occasions, and he just never had the window pane replaced.
Okay.
So he had climbed in that way when he got locked out. So
it's just that was his new normal.
That's just a new front door. But that doesn't mean an intruder couldn't have seen that and climbed in.
Sure.
But nobody knew smashed the window open. According to Rolling Stone, there also appeared to be finger marks on the glass and an unidentified footprint on the suitcase that stood below it, a suitcase which Smith believed was part of the intruder's plan to sneak JonBenét's body out of the house.
Oh, okay.
It was later discovered that foliage had grown underneath the metal grill that blocked the entrance, meaning that someone had removed the grate at some point and then put it back. However, this fact is also disputed because within the smashed window, there was a spider web.
Okay.
Named Deb. No, I'm just kidding.
I was going to say Skylar makes an appearance. Okay.
Remember we used to say Skylar has seen so much in this room? Skylar has seen so much in this fucking basement.
Skylar has quite a backstory.
Skylar knows the truth, and it's like really scary that we can't ask her.
What? Her? This whole time?
Oh, what? Oh, that she's been the...
That she's a she, Skylar.
Oh.
Is Skylar a girl in your mind?
Yeah. Yes.
I thought Skylar was a boy.
Oh, well, all the Skylars I've known are always girls, so I guess I just kind of assumed it was a girl.
Skylar has another mystery to them.
Wow. I mean, who's to say, really? It's probably not for me. It's probably for Skylar to say. But she keeps everything really close to the chest, so I don't think we're going to find out.
Spider chest of theirs. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I guess because of Deb and Skylar, I just assumed they were like a little...
Like little gal pals?
Duo. Yeah, little gal pals.
Oh, okay.
So, right, there was this cobweb there, and you can see it in the photos, and it had dew and dust on it. So, apparently they determined it was around 70% unlikely that this web had been made after an intruder could have entered.
Like it had been there for too long.
Yes, so they believe Okay, so here, I'll explain it better. But because of the size of the window, so Lou actually does a demonstration and climbs into the window himself. Because of the size of the window and the level you'd have to crouch, there's no way someone could have gone through without destroying the spider web.
Oh, okay.
So basically, apparently it takes an average spider 1 hour to spin a web. So technically, an intruder could have come in and out, and then a spider created this web. But it also had a lot of dust and water and stuff kind of built up on it.
It was aged.
Yeah, so they determined, I guess, like a 70% chance this thing was there before, so nobody went through that window.
It was vintage. Also, like, I like how there's this, like, something as simple and as complex and as tiny as like a spider web can completely like make or break a forensic sensation. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the wildest shit that you don't ever even think of. So on October 13th, 1999 in Boulder, holy shit.
I was going to let it happen too.
I was about to like burp, so I was like, I have to get this word out quickly. And then I just said Boulder. In Boulder, Colorado.
Boulder, Colorado, yep. Know it well.
The grand jury decided there was not enough evidence to charge anyone in the death of JonBenet. And this was shocking to everybody because they were like, basically everybody believed that the parents did it, that Patsy did it. Patsy was like the number one, Patsy, I guess. She was like the number one suspect in the public's mind.
Really?
So when this grand jury came back and said, we don't have proof that they did this or whatever, we don't have enough proof that the grand jury, whatever, blah, blah, blah. People were shocked. Well, guess what? We find out later that that wasn't actually true. In 2013, it was revealed that the grand jury actually was prepared to charge the parents with fatal child abuse and accessory to a crime. But the prosecutor kind of vetoed it and said, like, nope, we don't have enough evidence to try them.
Weird.
And so even though the grand jury, and they're not allowed to talk about it, so even though the grand jury apparently ruled, like, we believe that they were part of fatal child abuse and they were an accessory to a crime, the prosecutor, Alex Hunter, declined to try them in the case and basically said, like, we don't have enough evidence. So the public was like, wait, what? And later we find out, like, everybody else in his court said, like, no, like, we want them tried. And he just made the call. He like vetoed it.
Okay.
So really odd. So the case to this day, as probably most of you know, remains unsolved. But obviously the entire world has their opinions and thoughts. And here are a couple highlights of what people think might have happened. So as far as intruder theories, we've already mentioned that there's a foreign DNA profile found. Oh, did I tell you that? Oh, I think I told you that.
Say it again.
That there was some DNA found in her underwear.
You said there was some DNA, but then it never really got touched. Like it never got like mentioned again.
Okay, yeah, it was like a really brief comment, but basically when they were going through her, doing her autopsy, they found like vaginal swelling, and they found like spots of blood in her underwear, and
like something had wiped, like she.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
it seemed like it had been wiped, and they found a foreign DNA profile that didn't belong to anyone in the house inside her underwear. Now, it sounds really damning. However, some believe the DNA might belong to the worker who made the underwear, which apparently happens.
What?
Because so what they did is they used touch DNA, which I guess is controversial because it's just like when somebody touches something and I don't know, it's very complicated, but apparently they use touch DNA to be like, oh my gosh, this is the same DNA that matches the one that was also on her leggings. But apparently they only used a few markers and in reality, they said it's possible it could be the same DNA in her leggings and in her underwear.
Okay.
But in reality, it couldn't be, or it could also not be the same DNA. I don't know. Does that make any sense?
It does. No, it makes sense. It's just, I didn't know it was controversial.
Because well, at first they said, oh my gosh, the DNA in her underwear, and there was also some DNA on her pants, they matched. And if they did match, then it's like, okay, then that's not just some random like interference from like police handling it, evidence, whatever. Like if it ended up in two parts of her clothing, like then it must be an intruder or somebody outside the family.
Yes.
But then later it kind of became clear that like maybe it wasn't the most reliable way to determine whether the whether the DNA was connected. But apparently that does happen where manufacturing processes, sometimes like small amounts of DNA will get into the clothing.
I had no idea. Isn't that weird? That's one of the more fun facts of today that I've learned.
It's so creepy to think about.
That,
but
like, you could wash something a million times and like there's still something from the very first
in the
moment
from like whoever sewed it or
weird
touched the elastic or what have you. Yeah.
Okay.
So neighbors apparently noticed a scream coming from the Ramsey household at 1 or 2 a.m. And after some testing, it was possible to hear a scream from the wine cellar room that JonBenet was found in, and not hear it from the parents' room 2 floors up. So
really? Okay.
Could have been she was
acoustics are a funny thing.
I know. That wine cellar had some great acoustics.
But only horizontally, not vertically.
Oh, right, exactly.
Yeah.
Like very specific. Mm-hmm. So John Andrew Ramsey, this was the son of John Ramsey. So the junior.
The 9-year-old.
No, sorry. That was Burke. So John had 2 kids from a previous marriage.
Oh, okay. I feel like I did not know that.
Yeah, sorry. I mentioned very briefly, but I also wanted to add that, I mean, it's really tragic. So John had 2 kids from a previous marriage, and his daughter was killed in a car accident at like 21 or like very young.
Holy
I don't know.
shit.
It's like, I think 21 or 24, some like very young age. So that had already happened, and Patsy had already been diagnosed with ovarian cancer before
Oh my God.
before this event. So they're going through like hell on many levels here.
Wow. Okay.
It's a lot. But so John was the other son from that marriage. He was definitely older. And there was a theory that maybe he was involved. And the main source of evidence on this is that they had found a blanket encrusted with his semen in the basement, along with a Dr. Seuss book that was found in the suitcase below the open window in the cellar. And it was his DNA. However, he had like a really strong alibi that he was in Atlanta that day. And I'm just thinking, like, I guess he could have been a part of this murder, but like maybe he was just like had a gross blanket from his teenage years that he like left in some boxes in storage, and his dad put the box or the suitcase in the basement.
Maybe he's really into hop on pop, So
yeah. Listen, I'm not here to judge. Okay,
I'm not either.
Everybody is allowed to have their
You can do it in
kinks.
a box. You can do it with some socks. Look, it's fine. It's okay.
You can do it with some socks. Oh my God. Yeah. So, yeah, listen. Yeah. Anyway, that's another random fun fact for you. That's not very fun.
Nope,
and now there are a couple.
It's definitely shocking. I didn't see it coming.
It's definitely shocking and not fun and pretty gnarly.
Right.
There have been a few names that also came up. So one of them is Gary Oliva. And it's one of these things where now the following two people I mentioned, every time they started talking, I was like, yep, that's the one. That has to be the guy. And then you hear the next one, you're like, wait, no, that has to be the guy. Like, it just...
Wild. Okay.
It's so frustrating. So Gary Oliva is a 32-year-old known sex offender in Boulder, Colorado, operating around the time that JonBenet was found strangled to death in what looked like a potential sexual assault, given that there was a droplet of blood on her underwear. And the convicted pedophile, Oliva, had been living in the area on and off when police allegedly found a magazine cutout of JonBenet Ramsey in his backpack after he was apprehended on drug charges in 2000. And in that same backpack was also a stun gun.
Oh.
And apparently in his home, he had a shrine to her. And he admitted that he loved her to police, but he said he would never hurt her because she was his lover. So
good night. Holy
and you have to remember too that this girl has become like internationally famous because of this case. So her pageant photo of a 6-year-old little girl is all over the world. So, you know, any sickos can say like, oh, I did it, or even just like, oh, I'm in love with her, but I didn't kill her. You know, it's like really,
sorry,
really
goose
gross.
cam. Ugh.
It's horrendous. So there was the stun gun, though, which was odd. Then there was this other guy named Bill McReynolds, and he's now deceased. And this is the Santa Claus theory. I don't know if you know about this.
Merry Christmas. I figured out how this is the holiday episode.
Yay! So a Santa Claus theory, basically this guy, he's a friend of the family, Bill McReynolds, and he was very close with the family, and he would dress up as Santa Claus to entertain the neighborhood children. And every year Patsy had she had apparently a Christmas tree in every room of her house, and she took it very seriously. And remember, this is a 15-room house. And she did this huge Christmas bash. She said 1,500 to 2,000 people went through her house in a matter of 48 hours to look at all her Christmas decor. So this guy, Bill, and he would dress up as Santa to entertain the kids, and they loved him.
It's precious.
Yes. And so McReynolds was, however, rumored to have paid a little too much attention to JonBenet.
Okay.
And the rumors were not just rumors. So it's nothing like... Well, I'll just tell you. So he went so far as to arrange a secret visit from Santa Claus on Christmas. He said something special will happen to you on Christmas. Okay. And then he said he had chosen JonBenet to be his special friend.
No.
And she had given him a vial of glitter as like a gift. Because she was enamored with him. She's like, it's Santa Claus, you know? She thinks this guy's Santa Claus.
Fuck, if I were 6 and Santa Claus lived right next to me and he's going to be at the party, I'm bringing him some glitter.
And my mom could just hire him to come over whenever. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I got him on speed dial, Santa Claus. Yes. I'm the coolest kid in the world, yeah.
That must be pretty fucking great. So she had given him a tour of the house, her bedroom, the basement, and she had given him a vial of glitter, and he had brought it with him to his heart surgery and carried it with him. And then even stranger, he said when he died, he wanted his wife to mix the glitter into his ashes.
Okay.
It went a little too far.
You know, it went a little far, and I was going to allow it because it wasn't too weird. It's too weird.
It's too weird. And there's more info you can get. But basically this guy, and also within a week, he was on talk shows and he was talking to the public. And there were some lines where I went ew, where he was like, children are the most special creatures. He talks very strangely about children, to be clear. And so he was definitely a suspect. I don't think... Oh, also another weird thing. It turns out his wife had written a play about a little girl being murdered in her basement.
See ya. Okay.
Isn't that wild?
Wow. It's like there's a smoking gun in every single house.
Every single person has a taser. That's just oh, that's the taser.
What is going on?
I know. It's wild. So,
I'm overwhelmed, just so we're clear.
It's overwhelming.
My brain is kind of muddy. I'm just
circuiting.
I'm kind of shaking around. What's going on? Okay.
Yeah. So a forensic pathologist named Dr. Cyril Wecht rebuts this theory. He asserts if this was the work of an intruder, they would have had to climb into the house without causing any disturbance. They must have known where the little girl's bedroom was, awoken her, taken her from her room without causing a disturbance. But again, like if you tase somebody, sure, you could probably do that. If you know where her room is because you're Santa and she showed you.
If you tase her fucking face. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe she'll come with you. Right?
Also, you had to be able to know exactly where the pen and the paper were. You had to know which of the stairs they went going down. You have to be able to. You had to hang out for like 3 hours to like come up with what you were going to write and write it all out. Like, Jesus.
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. You had to know it was her favorite white blanket. I feel like that was symbolic and we're not even talking about it.
God. Yeah, true.
Anyway.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think of that. So taking her from her room without causing disturbance and nobody hearing anything. So then he would have had to have some sort of like whatever his intentions were, sexually or otherwise, would have had to do this, then kill her, then write a ransom note. He didn't even bring a pen and paper. He would have had to go find it in the house, wrote a long ass ransom note asking for money, then left the body in the house, even though the ransom note was asking for money in exchange for the body.
If I did kill a child in their own home, the last place I would leave that child is in their own home. Like
it doesn't make any sense.
Well, you were like, I'm bored now. Like now,
and there was like
halfway done, and I don't want to do this anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. And there was like a really interesting point that this one guy made. Oh God, I'll tell you the documentary later, but he said basically like it doesn't usually happen both ways. Either somebody is attacking a child or abducting a child for sexual reasons or for ransom, and they like he said like virtually never
are they
combine. And so he's like, if somebody comes for sexual gratification, they're not doing this for $118,000,
right,
or whatever. But also usually in that scenario you would take the body somewhere else to like do that.
Right. Okay.
So it's all just very weird, and it doesn't fit that there's a ransom note and allegedly like sexual reasoning behind it too. So now we're back to the family theory, essentially.
Okay.
Some people think and thought and still do think that this was the work of Patsy, the mother. She was like the number one suspect in the public eye forever, and still is, I think. According to a 1999 Washington Post article, Colorado Bureau of Investigation agents concluded that 4 fibers on the duct tape taken from JonBenét's mouth were consistent with a jacket that her mother wore on Christmas night.
Oh.
Also, the item used to strangle JonBenet was a broken paintbrush from Patsy's art kit, like I had mentioned.
Right.
And the ransom note. So there was an analyst who, there were a lot of analysts who looked at this, and they got handwriting samples from both of them. So the handwriting analyst said, the first page, you can tell someone's trying to fake their handwriting. It's like wonky, they're writing weird and slow, and then by the second and third page they're back into a rhythm of their own handwriting. And she said that's what happens if you're trying to fake it. At a certain point you just fall back into your own
like
writing.
Your brain forgets that you're trying.
Yeah exactly. And basically they were like, this is Patsy's fucking handwriting. So multiple analysts have said it's a pretty solid assumption that she wrote the note.
I think that's pretty fair. I think had it not been her, it sounds like there were some other surrounding neighbors that it could have been. Like they definitely had quite a little bundle of characters in their life that sadly all look like they could be capable of this.
It's horrendous. Yeah. So the other weird thing about this too is that like in the interviews when they interviewed John and when they finally got to interview them separately, John said, well, maybe the handwriting looks like Patsy's because it was written by a woman. And then Patsy said, well, maybe the handwriting looks like mine because it was written by a woman. So they had like the very same wording of like, maybe it was written by a woman. And so like you can tell that they clearly prepped that in advance, which was just a weird thing to say. And if you look at it, like it looks like her fucking handwriting.
Interesting.
Yeah. So if a forensic handwriting analyst is saying it's her handwriting, I'm just going to trust him. So that, and then what was the other thing? Oh my God, her clothes. That's the other weird thing. So it turns out that Patsy, that next day when like police came and everything, was wearing the same outfit she had worn to the Christmas party the night before. And they were like, that's weird. And she's like, yeah, well, I put it on that morning before I went downstairs to make coffee. And they're like, So you put on the
Old
pants
clothes.
and sweater you wore all day at a Christmas party the night before.
I mean, like, to be fair, I'm pretty disgusting. And like quarantine has really like jacked that personality trait up. Like I'm one of those people like that I don't really change my clothes until they're like dirty. Like there will be 2 or 3 days until I change clothes sometimes. But
no, completely same. But I think this is a different scenario because she wore like a Christmas sweater and like velvet pants and
going out clothes.
Like I mean, she was at a party. Like she wore like a full party outfit, and then
took them off and went to sleep and then
went to bed in her pajamas, and then said
no,
and then said, "Oh, well, I must have just put them on." And they were like, "Well, why would you put on the same clothes?" And also, she's like rich as shit. Like she's worth $6 million. Like she has like a sweater.
She has at least a second sweater.
Yeah, like she's not. It's just like weird to be wearing like a blouse or something you wore the night before at a party. Like that's gross. It's probably sweaty. It probably smells like booze. Like,
well, okay, my shirts are pretty sweaty and smell gnarly too. But
I know,
but it's the taking it off then putting it back on.
That's the thing. I
have standards there.
Yeah, I wear the same clothes for days, but the second I shower, I'm like, well, fuck. Now I need to put on new clothes. Like I'm not gonna put on.
Guess
like,
I won't see this shirt for 7 more months until I get through all of the shirts.
Exactly. So the weird thing was that she said she took them off the next morning, and then she's like, well, I put on clean underwear and then I put those clothes back on, and they were like,
weird.
What?
Yeah, because maybe like if she got like fucked up that night and just like passed out in her clothes and then woke up,
right?
Okay,
but that is not what happened in her story. And she is like a fucking pageant. Like she is like always prim and proper. Like she's not like slouching around.
I don't want to say like vanity, but like image.
Yeah,
and like
image. Yeah, and she's not running around looking sloppy. So it was just like very odd because she clearly got caught up in it and went, well, I must have just put them back on. And they were like, that's weird. But so obviously from everyone else's eye, it looks like she didn't take them off. Like she was wearing them. And then if 1 or 2 in the morning, this event occurred.
Right.
And lo and behold, the next morning she's wearing the same outfit because she never took it off, which I think makes the most sense. Anyway, so some people do believe that it was John Ramsey who killed her. Some people think he might have had some sort of like sexual relationship with her, but there is zero proof of this. Mm-hmm. And as far as the vaginal inflammation, it turns out she had been diagnosed with vaginitis, which is just like an irritation that a lot of kids get. Like you can get it from soap, you can get it from like wiping badly.
I was gonna say my big fear was like the mom needed it to look like something else and like assaulted her own kid. That's what I was afraid.
No, I don't.
Okay, that makes me feel better. That like
they didn't find semen, they didn't find like rape, signs of rape. They just found like inflammation, which they thought like maybe this is a sign of ongoing sexual trauma. But they talked to her pediatrician, who basically said like, trust me, every child that comes through my practice, like this is one of my biggest concerns. And he said she had inflammation. A lot of kids have it. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary. Like people are blowing this out of proportion. And there is absolutely zero proof, according to many pathologists, that there was no ongoing sexual assault of this child.
Good. That's one good thing out of the story. And also too, she was not beheaded. So like, I'm trying to find the really small silver linings here. I mean, she still didn't make it, but I'm glad she wasn't like really horribly tortured beforehand. Maybe. Yeah. Well,
the death was pretty violent, but we'll get to that. Okay. So in 2008, Patsy and John were officially cleared of any involvement in the murder. But basically, the reason people thought that Patsy was the number one suspect, like when they were like, well, what's the motive? Well, apparently JonBenet had been having really bad bedwetting incidents almost daily. It was becoming like an almost daily issue. And so a lot of people said, well, Patsy was like really upset about it, really worried, frustrated, like maybe this happened and she just like flipped out and hit her and didn't mean to like kill her, but like hit her in the head and then had to cover it up.
I see.
And that's like one of the main running theories, is that she snapped, or she flipped out, hit her with some object and like knocked her out, and then had to like cover the rest of it up as like and wrote a ransom note, the whole thing. So that's kind of why they think she could have done it. So they were cleared of any involvement publicly. And some people think now, as you mentioned earlier, one of the other big theories is that it was JonBenét's brother, Burke.
Okay.
Now, Burke was known to have had a bit of a temper that he often took out on his sister. He had actually hit JonBenet a year before her death, and again in August 1994 when he hit her in the face with a golf club. And left like a scar. So he hit her hard and left like marks. It wasn't like, oh, roughhousing. It was like he has hit his little, 4 or 5-year-old sister.
Yeah.
Very brutally in the head. So not a good sign. And according to the Ramsey's housekeeper, Linda, in Steve Thomas's book, JonBenet Inside the Ramsey Murder Investigation, she, quote, recalled once finding fecal matter the size of a grapefruit on the sheets in JonBenet's room, as well as feces on one of her gifts. And like that, again, like with the bedwetting is a sign, according to, you know, the experts on the documentary, of like anxiety, stress, like a stressor, something's wrong, obviously.
Right.
It's not normal. And so that, one of the theories is maybe he was like abusing her, or physically or otherwise. And another theory proposes that potentially Burke was up eating the pineapple and milk, and JonBenet came down and took one out of the bowl with her fingers, which is perhaps why there were no fingerprints on it, and she had eaten it. So somehow she had ingested it. So the theory is he was downstairs eating it. She took one, like maybe teasingly or whatever. He got pissed off, took the nearest object and whacked her across the head much harder than he had planned.
Shit.
The parents wake up, or he wakes the parents up and says like, uh-oh, or whatever. Maybe the only way to keep one of their children is to cover it up. And in Burke's interviews, they're a little bit off. Like sometimes he goes into fetal position and he repeats a lot of the same phrases that his mom used, that were kind of like grown-up phrases that didn't seem to fit. Like he said, like, not that I'm aware of, a lot. And he was like 9, phrases where you're like hence, like where you're like,
right.
Huh. His tone is off. He's asked if he's afraid, and he says he's not afraid. And it's a little odd. A psychologist thought it was odd because his sister has just been murdered, and you'd think like if there was a maniac on the loose, like they could be coming for you, as a normal child thought. But obviously, children react to things differently. So the question is, like, how would he have hit her with such force, thus killing her? But in the Netflix movie Casting JonBenet, they did have a bunch of 9-year-olds hit a watermelon. And it really...
What were we going to have them do? Okay.
Yeah, just a watermelon. But it's really not that hard. And children's skulls are very thin compared to grown-up skulls, and fragile.
At her age, like you barely have your kneecaps developed.
Yes, exactly.
She's got soft bones.
Sure, he was 9, but he's also hit her in the face with a golf club. So it's not like this is out of character.
He's had practice, yeah.
Yeah, so it was only on August 13th, 1997 that the autopsy results were released to the public, and the cause of death was deemed by the coroner. Initially, it was deemed as asphyxiation due to the rope, but now a new pathologist had looked at the autopsy results and said because of the shape of the fracture, he believes that the blow to her head was actually the cause of death. So potentially the strangulation thing was done afterward. Now, the counter argument to this is that with the strangulation, you can almost see what people argue is fingernail marks of her trying to get the rope off of her own neck.
Oh, no. Okay.
But there's also no conclusive proof that that's what the marks are. So if it is defensive marks, then obviously that's what occurred first. But there's no proof that that's what the markings are. So basically, he believes that... so he said the shape of the fracture, it looks like it was done by a hard object, and it was only when he was looking through crime scene photos and saw a large flashlight sitting on the kitchen table that he realized that was most likely potentially what could have been the weapon that killed her. And so there wasn't blood or hair on the flashlight, but Dr. Spitz, who was the pathologist, explained that a blow to the head with an object like that could break the skull but not the skin. Like that's a potential, which I had no idea. and therefore wouldn't have like broken skin and gotten blood on it.
And how would you know? Sure, yeah.
Yeah. And so he believes that due to JonBenét's age and having like what he called an eggshell skull of a 6-year-old, anyone could have caused the impact. The parents kept saying it must have been a man, but he's like, nope, a child could have smashed her head. Like she was small and little and had, a thin skull. And so the flashlight, interestingly enough, was never claimed by the family or police. So even though it's in the photos, like nobody really knows what it's doing there.
Interesting.
And it was right next to the pineapple. So it's like she could have grabbed she could have taken his pineapple, like teased him, and, he could have grabbed the flashlight, swung it at her.
Yeah.
She falls to the ground and he goes, oh, I didn't
And
mean
it
to
feels
do
like
this.
a little kid thing to like try to hide the baby or the kid with like just throwing a blanket on top and being like object permanence. Like, if I can't see it, then maybe it's not there.
Well, and like they say, when bodies are covered up, a lot of times it's like a remorse thing. They don't want to see it. And so, I mean, my thought is that I'm getting now into my thoughts, but basically, if Burke did it, I believe that the parents were the ones that carried her downstairs. I don't think he could have like carried her downstairs and done the whole garrote and everything. I think they were probably just trying to cover up, stage the scene, basically. Add like the garrote with her own paintbrush, cover her up with a blanket. I don't know, but to me, I'm thinking,
what about the stun gun to the face? I can't imagine like as upset as you are that your child is now not here. If you had to stage her murder for your other kid, I still could not put a stun gun to my kid's face.
The stun gun is the thing that gets thrown in and you're like, okay, that part doesn't fit.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like every solution suddenly has all these like problems.
Does it have to be a stun gun or could it be something else?
They did testing on pigs, which is really sad. And they determined like that it's pretty much exactly the spacing and size of a stun gun.
Okay.
So, okay. Anyway, he believed that they added the strangulation as an accessory to the murder to create a mystery as to like to complicate.
Yeah, because like why would you tie this whole thing on the neck and
yeah, and maybe make it look like somebody had strangled her. JonBenét's hands were also tied up, but they were done in a slip knot, which means like she could have broken free. So it's just odd, like it could have happened after death because they wouldn't have stayed tied if she were alive.
I can't imagine trying to stage the body of one of, but like having to like not even just stage it, but like be like aggressive and violent with that body to make it look real, like tightening something on the neck and all that.
That's what freaks me out. That's what freaks me out for sure. Yeah. And I mean, maybe that was Burke too. Who knows? Maybe he got violent. I mean, I'm not saying it was because there's literally no way to know that right now, but I just don't know who did that. So CBS ran this documentary, and I remember when this came out. It was called The Case of JonBenet Ramsey in 2016, and it was like this intense, basically like allegations against Burke, and it was basically the whole thing was like Burke did it. And I remember watching this in 2016 in my Glendale apartment and going, of course, Burke for sure did it. There's no fucking doubt in my mind. And then you kind of watch other documentaries and you're like, okay, it was so extremely one-sided. Like they found like the experts who were going to agree with this, that, and the other. And he actually sued for $750 million for defamation after that came out.
Whoa.
So like they kind of did a...
Did they have to pay him?
I'm not sure if he won. I'm not sure. And I don't know, maybe it could still be ongoing.
Wow.
But he did go on Dr. Phil after that to try and kind of clear his own name. And
I love Dr. Phil.
I know. Dr. Phil gets every fucking murderer or suspect, I guess, on his show.
I really am just like an old trailer park grandpa. Like there's nothing I love more than watching Jerry Springer, Maury, Dr. Phil, Steve Wilkos. I mean, just like the trashiest of trash. I love it.
That was like my childhood, just like sick from school watching Maury, like, are you the father? Who knows?
The answer is fucking no. I know it. I'm telling you. But I want to watch it happen anyway.
Oh my God. My mom would vacuum and I'd be like, can you turn it down? I'm about to find out if he's the father. And I was like,
especially when they only turn the vacuum on right when he says, like, Bill, like he like says the name, and he's like, you, and then
oh God, I'm like sweating already.
I'm only saying that because that exact thing happens so many times where I'd be like, no, I can't even.
Truly, it would piss me off when I was like, you vacuum, and I'm like, that's not the point. Anyway. So he went on Dr. Phil and he got a lot of heat because he, I guess, was smiling throughout the whole interview. But also, like, and then Dr. Phil later asked viewers to remember that, like, Burke, well, this is kind of rude, but he's like, he's socially awkward. He was hidden from the world after the death of his sister. He was put on blast, like, on, you know, as a child and spent his whole childhood under this shadow. And, like, in this limelight of like my parents potentially murdered someone or they think I murdered someone, and either way, like you're gonna grow up to be kind of
not right
awkward.
In the head. Yeah.
Or yeah.
I mean, like,
and
I just think like if you're 9 and like everyone thinks you're a murderer.
Yeah.
And if you are, okay, well that you already are a little unstable.
Yeah, something right. You're living with that, first of all. Yeah.
Or you are not a murderer and the world thinks you are and you're 9 and people think if it's not you, it is your mommy and daddy.
Yeah. And
like,
that's like your identity now, you know?
Yeah. So like you're not going to end up being totally 100%. Like,
yeah, I mean, I don't blame, like, listen, I couldn't be on Dr. Phil. I'm fucking socially awkward. So I can't imagine if, like, I'm there to defend the fact that I didn't murder my sister. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, like, and so anyway, he went to Purdue. He got a degree in computer science, I think. And, like,
did he get his name changed? I would have fucking done that.
I don't think he changed his name, but I do believe that he's, like, really off the radar. Like, he lives pretty off the radar, understandably.
Okay.
But no, I don't believe he changed his name. So anyway, the case remains unsolved. People are still trying to figure out what the hell is going on. Patsy has since died. She died in 2006 at the age of 49 of ovarian cancer. And John remarried and now lives with his wife, Jan, in Michigan. Like I said, Burke attended Purdue and graduated in 2009, but keeps to himself for the most part. There's tons of books, tons of documentaries. I watched Casting JonBenet for the first time this week, and it's very good. But I would recommend you watch that after you watch like the other ones that go into depth about the case, because Casting JonBenet is more of like a artsy look at it in the lens of other people. Like, it doesn't tell you much about the case. But I would say my favorites, my all-time favorite series, it's a 3-part series called JonBenet, an American Murder Mystery. And that is on, oh God, I think I had to buy that on Amazon Prime. But I like Casting JonBenet on Netflix. And then The Killing of JonBenet, Her Father Speaks, was on Hulu, but now it's also on Amazon. You have to pay for it, so that's annoying. But those are my favorites. And wowza. I mean, in my opinion, basically, which, again, I don't like to kind of make speculations on something like this because it's just wildly, like, hurtful if it's wrong, you know, but
sure.
My thought is that Burke got angry, hit her with the flashlight. Parents wake up, panic. They're like, we need to stage this and protect our son. We just got to do it. And that's why the mom and dad like just stuck to their stories. I think she wrote the note. I think they couldn't think up a number besides 118,000 because that's just what was on their mind. He had just gotten that money.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I think, then they shielded Burke from press or whatever. And the thing that trips me up is the taser and the garrote, because I'm like, one of them would have had to do that. And I'm not saying that Burke is like a fucking sociopath murderer. I'm saying like it could have been an accident. My thought is it was an accident within the house and they were covering it up. But that's the most common theory anyway. But that's kind of where I stand. So
I have no idea where I stand.
It's so fucking convoluted.
I have no fucking clue. But I think you did a good job of at least like covering like every angle of it, so like anyone can have an opinion. But like I think the parents are involved somehow. I just don't know if they were instantly guilty or if they got forced into having to do this.
Yeah, I think somebody knew. I think they know more than they let on, I think. Yeah. At the very least.
I think that for sure.
Yeah.
Wow, holy fuck. Wow.
Merry Christmas.
You know what? Merry Christmas. That was quite a doozy. I hope everyone is being safe this holiday. If you don't have to travel, I really, really hope you don't have to travel, and everyone just stays safe and where they are. And Zoom is, kicking.
You don't have to wear your pants, as Em can prove it to everybody.
I'm just saying, like, the only upside in that, like, I had to go to a funeral is that, like, pants were optional.
Pantsless. Yeah, and I also want to add to, I think it's going to be really tough on a lot of people because a lot of people are going to be alone for the holidays and aren't able to see family or have had family pass or are just isolated. And it's hard to be isolated all year anyway. And now with the holidays, it makes it extra hard. So I just want to, like, give a little, like, hug to everybody who's dealing with, feelings of loneliness or isolation, especially during what's supposed to be a holly jolly season. So
yeah,
we're here for you, and we're just going to keep releasing episodes. So pretend we're just, gabbing away with you.
Yeah. Gabbing away. That's us. Obviously.
I mean, at you mostly.
Yeah. I hope, I like how it's like, I hope you don't feel lonely. So we'll talk at you and you can't contribute.
Yeah. And you have to sit there and, like, suffer through it, which is sort of like a holiday with your family. So, I mean,
yeah, just pretend that we're your, like, really terrible family, but not like the racist terrible.
I'm
just
drunk
like
uncle, but like nice drunk uncle. Yeah.
I'm the one who's just asleep in the bar lounger before people even get there. So
no pants on. Neither of us. Neither of us have pants on.
I'm just the one that makes everyone, like, feel uncomfortable when they bring their, like, new partners over and they're trying to impress. I'm the one that, like, you're like, please don't even talk to them. I don't even want you to get into that. So,
and I'm like, hey, do you know about JonBenet Ramsey? And they're like, oh dear.
And then they're like, oh my God, yes, I absolutely have opinions on that. All right, well. Christmas time is here.
Oh, I know I meant to do it at the beginning, but I'll do it for our actual holiday episode next week.
Okay.
Since I forgot this time around, I apologize, but we'll be here on the 27th.
Well, thank you guys, and hopefully you're doing hot.
Doing hot.
I don't know. And
that's
why
we
drink.